Hey there, folks. Welcome to another fun at-home table read. Tonight, we're jumping into another fun unmade film, John Sayles' draft for Jurassic Park 4. We're going to get right into introducing ourselves, so starting us off.
Hello, my name is Mary, and I will be doing action description.
I'm George, and I'll be playing Nick.
I'm Lynne, and I'm reading for Overton.
I'm Logan. I'm going to be doing John Hammond.
I'm Nicole. I'll be reading for Joyce and Von Drax.
I'm Angi. I'm reading for Maya.
I'm Johnny. I'll be reading Zeiss.
Hi, and I'm Anne, and I will be reading Sherman.
All right. Well, Mary, take us away.
Jurassic Park 4, written by John Sayles. Exterior Little League field, aerial shot. We drift over a scene of Saturday afternoon Americana, a Little League baseball game, and the cookout at the town field of a peaceful suburban community. Ground level, picnic area. A dad in a grease-splattered apron flips steaks, burgers, and hot dogs on the grill with a long-handled fork. Parking lot, yappy dogs. A little yappy dog scoots around, barking with an apoplectic fury at the end of its leash, secured to gardening stake whacked into the ground at the edge of the parking lot. Bleachers. Parents cheer for their children on.
Come on, Joshua, rip the cover off that ball.
Buckle down, fellas, on your toes out there.
Joshua's mother sits with little Rebecca, no more than 2 or 3 years old, standing on the bleacher set seats beside her, and her bespectacled son, Benjamin, immersed in a Harry Potter book on the other side. Behind her is a video enthusiast parent recording everything with a high-end video camera.
Come on, honey, lay into it. Benjamin, stop reading. Your brother's up.
I'm aware of that, Mother.
We pan to the field just as Joshua swings and hits a grounder between first and second.
Run, run, run!
Right field. The ball continues into right field, where little Timmy, not major league material, lets it roll between his legs, turns and kicks it a few times before finally picking it up and laughing at an anemic throw towards the infield to the chorus of
Throw it! Throw the ball! Throw it!
infield. The ball is retrieved by the first baseman, who hurls it to the shortstop, covering second. But Joshua is already standing happily on top of the bag. The pitcher is furious, yelling out to Timmy.
All you gotta do is pick it up and throw it. You're such a spaz.
Hey, none of that.
We pan to see the coach standing in front of the bench of the team in the field.
I'll handle the coaching here.
Do we have to have him out there?
Just get back on the mound, mister.
The pitcher kicks the dirt and returns to the mound as the coach turns angrily to Timmy.
Keep your head down on those grounders and throw ahead of the runner. You're out there picking daisies.
Bleachers. Timmy's father puts his head in his hands, humiliated.
You got a double.
A single and an error.
Yeah, kid in right couldn't catch a cold and flu season.
Come on, Eli, bring him in.
Right field. Timmy dejectedly walks back to his position. A large shadow sweeps over him. Parking lot, yappy dog. Yappy dog is yapping, then senses something above and freezes. Looking up, he starts to whimper. Bleachers. Little Rebecca is looking up into the sky, fascinated.
Good eye, Eli. Way to look.
Look, Mommy, birdie.
This is your pitch now. Get some aluminum on it.
Birdie, Mommy, birdie.
That's nice, honey.
Field. The pitch, clink. Eli lifts a very high pop-up into, oh no, right field. Bleachers.
Get under it, son. You got it, Timmy.
Drop it.
Right field. Timmy unsteadily wobbles under the pop-up. Everyone on and off the field shouting instructions at him. Sky, baseball. The baseball keeps rising, rising. Foosh! A huge black Saurus sweeps out of the heights and snatches up the ball in its razor-toothed beak, then wings away with powerful strokes. Timmy, frozen in amazement, gloves still ready for the ball that won't be coming down for him to drop. Bleachers. The spectators are stunned, speechless, gaping up at the sky. Little Rebecca giggles.
Big birdie.
Picnic area. The barbecuing dad stands frozen with half-done steak suspended on his fork, trying to make sense of what he just saw.
What the?
Flap. Another Pterosaurus swoops down from behind and snatches the steak off his fork. Bleachers. We shoot from behind the bleachers towards the field and the sky above. A black shape takes form, winging in over the fence in center field. Reverse. The spectators are standing up concerned.
Look, up in the sky. It's
It's some sort of pterosaur, Mother.
it's coming at us.
Joshua's mother grabs little Rebecca and ducks with all the spectators as the pterosaurus buzzes the bleachers, squawking with menace. Only the video enthusiast and Benjamin remain standing.
There's a whole flock of them, though flock might not be the right word.
Joshua's mother grabs his arm and yanks him down, turns screaming to the field.
Joshua, run! Run!
Field. It looks like World War I dogfight over the infield. A half a dozen pterosaurs wheeling and swooping, squawking hellishly, the little leaguers scrambling in all directions. Joshua begins to run down the base path towards a third. A pterosaurus flapping after him. As he rounds third, the beast makes a lunge, narrowly missing the boy with its talons. Joshua sprints towards home plate and his mother in the bleachers beyond, the pterosaurus wheeling and pursuing. Joshua's mother, standing with her daughter in arms now, screaming out.
Run! Joshua, run! Slide!
Joshua, just as the pterosaurus makes another snatch for him, Joshua slides under its grasp and across home plate. The pterosaur streaks past, busting partially through the nylon mesh of the backstop, squawking and struggling as it becomes entangled. Parking lot, aerial shot. We swoop down from above at the no longer yapping, yappy dog. The dog whimpers. Take a hard run, thunk, and pulls the stake clear out of the ground, scampering away with it trailing him till whack. The swooping pterosaur scoops it up and swallows it whole. Yum. Flapping away with the leash and stake dangling from its bill. Poor puppy. Picnic area. Family members running every which way as they are dive bombed by pterosauruses. A pterosaur crouched on a blanket in the ground, wolfing down the abandoned picnic food. Barbecue Dad fends one flying menace off with his long fork, then dives under the picnic table for refuge. Field. General panic on the field. The pitcher has been standing petrified on the mound throughout, too scared to run or even lie down. His father is starting out to him from the sidelines, much impeded by swooping, squawking pterosaurs.
Just stay right there, Alex. I'm coming to you.
But the pterosaur does a suka dive over the backstop and whap, grabs the boy by the shoulders, lifting him away.
No!
The flying beast flaps hard, trying to get some altitude, lunging the pitcher only a few feet off the ground as it heads straight towards Timmy in right field. Timmy's father is running out towards him, aluminum baseball bat in hand.
Grab him, Timmy! Grab him!
Timmy pulls his glove up, estimates, then jumps just as the pterosaur is starting to lift off, grabbing the pitcher's legs with both arms. The extra weight pulls the beast down close enough to the ground that whap, whap, whap. Timmy's father can start whomping it with the bat. The pterosaur lets the pitcher go, he and Timmy tumbling to the ground, then flaps away, croaking a distress call. The pitcher's father and Timmy's father help the boys up.
Nice grab, son. Way to use your head.
The video enthusiast steps past them, pointing his camera to the sky.
I think they're leaving.
We pan to see what he's taping. A phalanx of Tyrannosauruses wing away together. Infield, we track through the freaked out little leaguers and their freaked out parents, trying to comfort them till we reach home plate where Joshua's mother is on her knees, hugging Joshua as little Rebecca and Benjamin stand by.
Oh, Joshua, that was wonderful. You were so brave.
He didn't touch third.
He gives her bookworm son a withering look.
This is the last baseball game I ever take you to, young man.
Promise?
Backstop. The thoroughly enmeshed pterosaur caught in the backstop netting screams in frustration. Interior beach bar day. CU television screen. We start on a TV news image of the struggling pterosaur wrapped in cutaway backstop netting with a plastic restraint holding its bill shut, being carefully carried past shell-shocked little leaguers and parents by a pair of black uniform SWAT team members.
The attack, the first occurring within U.S. territory, left several people badly shaken, but resulted in no serious injuries.
We switch to handheld home video footage shot by the enthusiast at the game. Swooping pterosaurs, screaming humans.
Similar incidents have plagued communities in Central America and Mexico in recent months, leading to the formation of the United Nations Task Force to the exterminate of intrusive petrosaurs.
We switch to more professional footage of a pair of little Compsognathus floating on a natural raft of coconut shells and other debris on the ocean.
These and a few other formerly extinct species have migrated to the mainland.
TV image, an aerial shot of Isla Nublar.
From Isla Nublar, site of the notorious Jurassic Park disaster.
TV image, a dusty street in a Central American town. A flock of scrawny chickens run underfoot in a panic. Pedestrians jump into cars as a small band of Compsognathus dart around after the chickens. A big hen goes down, feathers flying as the complies drive into.
Causing untold damage to crops and livestock. William Speiler.
A business-suited corporate flag catcher, Speiler, appears on screen standing before a large corporate logo.
Spokesman for Grendel Corporation, a Swiss firm now responsible for the island, had this to say.
Our eradication of the genetically engineered creatures at the former Jurassic Park is nearly complete. We believe that these current deprecation
Reverse, Nick. Nick Harris, a current unemployed soldier of fortune, watches the TV skeptically as he stands at the counter of a beachfront bar.
can be attributed to animals that escaped the island before we at Grendel took possession of it.
Harris pushes inside his empty whiskey glass and steps away.
Right, buddy.
We can only regret that we were not given the opportunity to respond to the situation earlier.
Exterior beachfront bar boardwalk day. Harris squints at the sun, hits him. He has a day-old stubble on his face and the air of a man who's unhappily killing time. We track with him as he moves down the boardwalk past various beach types. A shadow drifts over him. He looks up. Point of view sky. Swooping low overhead are three pelicans. Similar outlines, but without the size and the teeth.
Nick,
Boardwalk. Jeb Overton, wearing a quasi-military uniform, approaches Nick with a halting gait.
it's you, right?
Nick looks him over, smiles slightly.
Captain Overton.
I look more like Captain Crunch in this outfit. I haven't seen you since...
He doesn't finish the sentence. The place they last saw each other is not one either wishes to reminisce about.
Yeah,
Have you heard from any of the other guys?
haven't been in the loop for a while.
Wilkins drove his car off a cliff. DeStefano? Well, peacetime is rough for a lot of people.
How about you?
Oh, I'm the bionic security guard.
He hitches up his pants slightly to reveal his ankles. Chromium prosthetics. Both legs are artificial below the knee.
State of the art. I'm in charge of the lockup over at the Avery.
He indicates the large hummingbird patch on the breast pocket of his uniform.
This, giant zoo for birds.
I always said you were for the birds.
Listen, are you still consulting?
I haven't had a contract in 3 years.
But if there was one, good money, little travel, little adventure,
You've been looking for me.
more or less.
Harris looks out over the beach. Lots of people having fun.
Not exactly a stepping stone to bigger and better things, what we do, is it?
He sighs, resigned.
Who's it for?
Well, he's kind of strange.
Exterior, Avery Day, EMU. An EMU faces us in a threat posture. Oh, an emu. The big, flightless bird making a deep thumping noise as it vibrates its massive chest.
They can get rather territorial in captivity.
My computer just froze. Sorry, hold on. Reverse. Nick and John Hammond stroll down a pathway through a section of high grass on the aviary. High above them is a domed ceiling of net. All around are outcroppings of foliage and busy birds. A sturdy nurse follows them several yards behind.
Of course, it doesn't put me in the best of moods either.
You're not in captivity.
Hammond shoots a quick look back to the nurse.
Just can't see the chains. My late heir managed to get me declared incompetent. My minders are bribed to spy upon me for my enemies.
You have enemies.
Did you know that I'm the most sued person in the history of the world? It's in the Guinness book. You should look it up. Prominent law schools devote entire semesters to my malfeasance. Regulatory statutes bear my name. Not the legacy I had in mind when I started out, but a legacy nonetheless.
They pass some beautiful rosette spoonbills wading through a shallow pond.
We look back at our lives and we try to tally up the things we are proud of against our regrets. Do you have regrets, Mr. Harris?
More than a few.
At the moment, my greatest regret, other than having spawned the careers of thousands of taught lawyers, is having put an evil into the world that may become permanent. An evil that must be eliminated before it spirals out of control.
Dinosaurs.
Yes, my dinosaurs. How much do you know about them?
Most of them have been wiped out. A couple species have been making a nuisance of themselves.
Whenever a new organism, specifically a predator with no natural enemies, is introduced into an ecosystem, the result is disastrous.
Pest control isn't in my line.
I'm not proposing you run around with a butterfly net, Mr. Harris. The most effective weapon against any species is its own behavior, particularly its reproductive behavior. Take a population of any wild animal and introduce a number of highly aggressive but reproductively neutered individuals within it, a Judas strain, so to speak.
Cuts down the birth rate.
Who better to locate our errant creatures than their almost identical kin?
Why not give them diseases too?
Viruses mutate faster than lawsuits, I'm afraid. Too much risk, they'd begin to affect the other species. But a large influx of young, aggressive, sterile, but sexually attractive females.
Sounds like a college boy's dream.
And the only solution, I believe, to our present crisis.
Sounds good to me.
But not to the United Nations. They've laughed off my proposals, outlawed not only the creation of any new dinosaurs, sterile or not, but also prohibited the worldwide mining, sale, or possession of amber.
No little mosquitoes trapped in tree sap?
Which means no basic genetic material to work with.
But even if you had these genes, you couldn't.
Among the people on the board of this aviary, funded through the trust I've set before my legal difficulties began, are some of the finest genetic scientists in the world. People who would be happy to risk implementing my plan, if a source of vital DNA could be located.
Something tells me you found one.
I didn't find it. I left it behind. A former employee of mine, Mr. Nedry.
Interior Jurassic Park laboratory. Flashback. We see Nedry opening a safe vault disguised as an aerosol can and sticking pilfer tubes of dinosaur embryo into it.
At the behest of one of my more unscrupulous competitors, conspired to steal a large quantity of genetic material, enough to engender at least 40 species from our laboratory at the park. It was his misfortune, however.
Exterior road, Isla Nubar, rainy night, flashback. Nedry's vehicle slides out of control in the torrential downpour, leaving the road and coming to rest, stuck in the muck.
To attempt this clandestine transaction during a period of severe technical malfunction at the facility.
Exterior jungle night, flashback. Nedry faces off with a large, curious Chlamydiosaurus sputori, spitting frilled lizards or spitter. Its frills pop up and it hawks a throat full of nasty black stuff into Nedry's face.
We were forced to abandon the island before his exact fate.
Nedry runs back into the vehicle, but the spitter leaps in after him, thrashing. Blood.
Or that of the material he had stolen could be determined.
We pan to the abandoned aerosol can, swept away by a rivulet of rainwater and quickly covered with muck. Exterior Avery Day present. Songbirds flit about in the branches all around them as they approach the rustic-built snack bar.
But the people who took over the island.
Grendel International. If they had found it, they wouldn't be constantly pressuring me to reveal its whereabouts. I have good reason to believe they might be people who engaged Nedry in his betrayal.
Why would they want dinosaur genes?
I shudder to think.
Hammond looks over the menu hanging above the snack bar counter.
Now, Major Overton tells me you're an expert in covert operations.
I was trained as a Navy SEAL. I've been involved in missions in and out of uniform.
We know the sector Nedry was in when he disappeared. The stolen material seems to have been hidden in an aerosol can of some sort.
Deodorant.
Given the state of Nedry's personal hygiene, I doubt it. We can provide you with a map.
There aren't any dinosaurs left on the island?
Grendel International claim to have restored equilibrium. They maintain a small security force there to discourage trespassers.
So I go there and I steal this.
Reclaim.
I bring this can of DNA back to you.
Captain Overton will be your contact.
Hammond scribbles a number on the snack bar order pad, flashes it to Nick, all the time wary of the approaching nurse. We see lots of zeros.
You will be amply rewarded for your risk, of course, with a generous bonus if you succeed. So?
Nick considers, nods, resigned.
I've done worse for less.
Excellent. Now, would you care for a sundae?
Exterior Isla Nubar Day. We start with an aerial shot of the Isla Nubar in the distance across the water, then tilt down to see a small local fishing boat in the fishing boat. Overton is there checking a GPS instrument as the boat's owner, Ramirez, deals with a net thrown over the side facing the island.
This is the legal limit. There are a couple patrol boats we'll hear from if we drift any closer.
We pan to see Nick sitting on the deck beside the cabin, which blocks him from the view of the island, and pulling on the last of his black scuba gear.
Give me 10 minutes and then pull out. Are you sure about this pilot?
They're used to seeing his plane around the coast. Eco tours.
Nick nods and pushes a camouflaged raft full of supplies overboard, clipping a nylon line attached to it to the back of his belt. Ramirez comes over to watch as Nick lowers his mask and sits backwards on the gunwale.
Buona suerte, senor.
Nick nods, falls backward into the water, and disappears. They watch the raft begin to pull away. Ramirez crosses himself.
Que Dios lo perderá.
Exterior beach, Isla Nubar. The beach looks inviting. Gentle waves, strip of white sand, a fringe of palm trees, little crabs scuttling among the falling coconuts. Suddenly, Nick sits up in the surf, quickly pulling off his slippers and mask and hustling across the sand to the shelter of the palms, dragging the supply raft behind him. Palms, very precise, very Mission Impossible. Nick strips off the wetsuit, opens the raft supply compartment, boots on, backpack, GPS unit, and laminated map on a lanyard over his neck. Then the weapons. Automatic combat shotgun, small pack rifle with silencer, a 50 caliber pistol in one holster, and a cell phone in the other. Nick crouches, sticks a homing device, as yet unarmed, into the sand at the edge of the tree line. He trots off into the jungle. Exterior jungle path day. Nick moves quickly down an extremely overgrown pathway, passing oddly canted lampposts and torn, rusted sections of metal fencing. This used to be the tourist track through the park. He stops abruptly, listens, the usual Tarzan movie jungle sounds, nothing you couldn't hear on vacation. He checks his GPS, then trots away. We hold, then tilt up, and the nearby lamppost to see a surveillance camera mounted near the top, swiveling to follow Nick's movements. Jungle. We shoot from ground level as Nick approaches from some distance, vaulting over a hole at the base of the gnarly rooted tree. We hold on the hole for a moment. A large, black, four-fingered reptile hand emerges, claws gripping the earth. Clearing. Nick is off and pathway now, moving through the thick jungle till he reaches a small clearing. He checks his map and GPS. He sees something, climbs a slight rise, pushes away some tall weeds. An abandoned, rusted-out four-wheel drive vehicle. Nick yanks a torn flap of canvas away to reveal Nedry's skeleton. Bony fingers still clutching the steering wheel. A small lizard scuttles out through one of the eye sockets in the skull. Creepy.
Looks like you've dropped a few pounds.
He rapidly searches the interior of the vehicle. Seats, floor, glove compartment, nothing but a flashlight and lots of old candy wrappers. He steps away, surveying the ground around him. Backpack. The backpack thumps to the ground. Nick unzips it and pulls out pieces of a disassembled metal detector. An animal scream from the back of the trees. Nick listens. Quiet again. He glances at his watch, begins to assemble the metal detector. Ground later, we see the metal detector disc sweeping over the ground. Wider. Nick, t-shirt soaked through with sweat, has set up a grid with wooden stakes and string. He is working a section several yards down from the vehicle, at the edge of the shallow with a little stream. He pauses, wipes sweat off his forehead. On a whim, he reaches the detector arm over the string and passes the disc over a little mud bar at the center of the stream. The machine crackles. Nick drops the detector and jumps into the stream, digging furiously at the mud bar with his hands. He stops, feeling something, then pulls up. A muck-covered Barbasol can. Nick kneels, washes the can off in the stream, then pulls out his cell phone and punches a number.
Yo, objective observed or secured. Proceed with extraction. I'll fire up the Homer.
He pulls a remote control from his vest, pushes in a red button. Exterior beach homing device. A blinking red light flicks on, the device beeping softly. Exterior jungle day. Nick moves quickly but cautiously through the thick jungle, passing by a few of the big root holes. He slows, frowning, listening. A rustle behind him. A snap to the side. He starts up again, very slowly. Again, the rustle in the brush behind him. He brings the shotgun up, crouching. Mahelo! Nick freezes, turns his head. Out of the trees, all around him, appear a squad of 6 security rangers in camo uniforms, armed with short-barreled automatic rifles. The Jefe waves his rifle at Nick. Deje, que las armas y pongas al suelo.
He wants you to drop your weapons and lie on the ground.
No tenga miedo. No más quiero la lata.
Don't be afraid. We only want the can. Your escopeta, por favor. Put it on the ground.
Nick takes a deep breath, calculating. Looks around at the men surrounding him. He sees something.
It's very good we find you before the dinosaurs do.
Rangers, Nick. We shoot from behind the Jefe and Segundo towards Nick.
I was told there aren't any left on the island.
Oh, there's a few.
Like the one standing behind you?
Segundo. We shoot the Segundo in profile as he laughs.
That won't work, my friend. The ones left here only come out in the night.
Chomp! A raptor's head lunges into the shot, jaws clamping on Segundo's neck and shoulder. He screams. Wider. Another raptor pops up from the hole next to the Jefe. The Rangers start to fire the weapons as another jet black, ruby-eyed, extra raptors, digging killers or just diggers, pop up from the holes. The men's have been standing in the middle of the colony of them. These creatures are bow-legged with huge mole-like digging claws at the end of their powerful forelimbs. Bop, 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 bop. The Rangers have their rifles on spray and pray as they panic and scatter, the Jefe pinned under one of the beast's powerful legs. Nick darts past the Segundo as the digger lifts the man off his feet and shakes him. Automatic gunfire rips into the trees around Nick as he dodges through the thick undergrowth, a pair of the monsters pursuing him. Nick zigzags between tree trunks, hurdles roots and falling logs, while the bigger diggers crash straight through them, slowed by the foliage. We hear screams and gunfire from behind, growing more distant. Nick gets hung up on a prickler vine for a moment, then lead digger gaining. Nick twists and blam, blam, blasts the creature in the face and neck as it rushes in for the kill. The digger staggers, falls to one knee as Nick tears free and sprints away. We hold as the second raptor reaches its wounded comrade, pauses, roars, then continues the chase. Clearing. Nick staggers, bleeding from the pricker vine, into an overgrown clearing. He leans his back against the grill of an abandoned service vehicle. Faded Jurassic Park logo on its side. He catches his breath, listening, quickly reloading his shotgun. A pointy little lizard face pops up behind him, looking out through the shattered windshield of the vehicle. Composagoneths. It's joined by another, and several more. One squeaks. Nick stiffens, then whirls. Blam! He fires just as a dozen of the little carnivores streak out from the window at him, the ones that aren't blown back into the vehicle by the blast leaping into his face. Shoulders, chest, arms, squeaking excitedly. Nick spins, swatting and snatching, complies flying off him, then sprints for the nearby building. We hold on his abandoned shotgun lying on the ground. Interior building. We shoot through the half-broken window as Nick sprints towards us and a dozen complies in pursuit. He picks up speed, dives, folding his arms over his head. Crash! Shards of glass go flying as he dives through the window. Does a forward roll, twists, and comes up on one knee, pulling his pistol from his holster in one motion. Pop, pop, pop. He picks off the complies one by one as they jump into the windowsill. The rest of them seem to take a hint. Nick lowers his bead on the window opening, looks around. We are in a dusty staff barracks, a half dozen bunk beds, frames draped with cobwebs along the wall, footlockers, an old boombox, a coffee maker in one corner by a row of standing lockers, simple but not Spartan. A poster of a Tyrannosaurus is starting to curl on the wall. Someone has drawn a knife and a fork in its long front claws and written in a cartoon balloon above its head, "Pass the tourists, please." Nick pulls the laminated map off his neck and studies it.
Staff quarters 1, 2, and 3, utility tunnel.
ECU map. We follow Nick's finger over the detailed diagram of the old parking lot, dotted lines indicating a utility tunnel that leads from the staff barracks to a power station near the south fence.
Leads to the power station,
Nick.
which is only 200 yards from the beach.
Nick looks around, steps over to a hatch in one corner of the room. He bends, grabs the handle, pistol ready in the other hand, then yanks the hatch cover open. Nothing jumps out at him. Nick looks down into the blackness. He unvelcros a small but powerful flashlight from his belt, shines it down the hatch. Point of view hatch. We see a rusted metal ladder leading down a cement floor. Nick considers the tunnel, looks back to the window. 3 complies stand ready in the windowsill, watching. Nick whips his pistol around, but they jump away before he can fire. He looks back into the dark tunnel below.
No way, Jose.
He looks around, sees a ceiling hatch over one of the bunk beds. Nick crosses, makes a face as he swipes away thick sheets of cobweb, climbs onto the bunk bed, reaches up. The eye hook and latch have rusted stuck together. They will not budge. Nick takes the butt of his pistol, gives it a hard rap. The hatch falls open, and the top half of a half-eaten dead man drops through. Nick shouts in surprise, leaping backwards off the bed and sprawled onto the floor, whipping his pistol up, ready to shoot. The body is a security ranger who has been gnawed on pretty bad, maybe a week old. Nick lowers his pistol, breathes deeply, trying to get his heartbeat under control. Wham! The digger crashes through the front door, tumbles across the room, sliding on the floor, knocking the coffee maker, and standing lockers down on top of itself. Nick is trapped in the corner. The digger scrambles to its feet, roars, lunges. Nick pulls the bunk bed down over himself as a shield, crouching. Thunk! The raptor's leg goes right through the deteriorated mattress and springs, claws just missing Nick's throat. He scrambles out as the beast writhes to free itself, making it to the tunnel hatch and starts down the ladder, grabbing the handle of the underside of the cover. Ladder, Nick's feet. Crack! The rusted metal rungs give way, snapping. Nick falling, but able to yank the hatch cover. Thunk! Thump! Nick hits the tunnel floor and the hatch cover falls shut, throwing us into blackness. Krang! The raptor claws punch through the hatch cover, then yank away, tearing away the thin metal. 3 stripes of daylight appear to illuminate Nick below. Getting to his feet, Krang! The raptor tears at the hatch cover again. Nick flicks the flashlight back on, trots into the dark, high-ceilinged tunnel ahead. Exterior island coast sky. We see through the palms to a small pontoon plane approaching over the sea. Interior cockpit control panel homing screen. A jerry-rigged homing screen clipped to the central panel has a blinking red light lined up with the central crosshairs. Reverse pilot. The pilot, a hippie-looking character in a deadhead shirt named Darwin, scans the beach.
We're supposed to be here, dude.
Beach. We watch as the plane slows and comes in for a water landing, the tracking to meet it as it taxis up to the surf line. Darwin cuts the engine, hops out and into the water, wrestling the little plane around so it's pointing out to sea, muttering all the while.
Ugh, this gig is gnarly enough without being late, man. Security guards, spy gear, probably some kind of psychosaurus still running around the island.
He runs a line from a U-bolt bolt under the tail assembly to a thick root sticking up from a half-buried driftwood stump, glancing at his watch.
Give you 10 minutes and then I'm history.
Interior utility tunnel. Nick is trotting along the utility tunnel, pipes and wires overhead. So far, so good. He stops at a fork in the tunnel, shines the light on his map.
There's no fork on the damn map.
Hrunk! The roar of the diggers echoes down the tunnel behind him. No time for eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Nick runs right. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Something underfoot. Nick swings the light down. Eggshells. Big ones. Dozens of them all over the floor.
Terrific. It's the nursery.
Hrunk! Another echoing roar sends Nick running again. We hold and watch him trot away. Something in silhouette drops from the pipes above and follows. Low angle Nick trotting past us as his light fades. A pair of yellow reptile eyes right in front of us pop open. Nick. We track behind Nick as he rushes along. Up ahead, we can see a single shaft of sunlight angling down. The light at the end of the tunnel. Closer, closer. Nick points the flashlight beam ahead to see 3 spitters standing between him and the exit ladder. The one closest hisses, its frilled mantle popping up in display. Nick whirls around, shines the light. Here comes 4 more spitters, and behind them, honk, the digger closing in. Nick turns, pop, 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 pop. The spitters back up a bit, but don't run as Nick opens fire on them. He clenches the pistol in his mouth, jumps and grabs onto the pipes above, swinging forward hand to hand, bringing his knees up to his chest as the spitters jump and snap beneath him, teeth just inches away. One of the spitters scrambles up the exit ladder, but ahead turns. Blam, blam, Nick fires, hanging by one arm for a moment. Then spitters fall, and Nick drops the pistol, swinging forward and hooks the top of the ladder with a foot. Exterior park grounds, back fence. Nick crawls out of the tunnel, opening, runs. A spitter pops up right behind him, looks around, then is yanked back into the hatchway by its tail. Snarling, chomping noises. Then the digger powers its way out of the opening, sniffs once, and heads after Nick. Fence. Nick looks at the 12-foot high fence above him, back at the charging raptor. He slips his backpack off, tries to squeeze through a very narrow opening that some short animal has torn at the base of the fence. He gets hung up, squirms, and slips through just as wham! The digger smashes into the fence head first, trying to grab him. Nick springs to his feet, sees that the backpack is just on the far side of the fence, the Barbasol can visible in the webbing pocket. The digger starts to dig furiously at the base of the fence. Huge clots of dirt flying behind him. Nick runs parallel to the fence, slapping it with his hands. Come on, you
stupid lizard. Come and get me. Come on, knucklehead.
The raptor leaves his digging and begins to run parallel on the other side, catching up with Nick.
That's it, Einstein. Follow the nice man. That about.
Nick puts on the brakes as he sees ahead. 20 yards further down, a whole section of fence has fallen. The raptor sees it too. They look at each other.
See you on the beach.
Nick sprints back towards the original hole and his backpack. The raptor takes a step after him, thinks, then turns the race for the open section. Fence, backpack. Nick races back, thrusts his arm through the hole and grabs the backpack, yanks it through and runs for the trees, pulling the Barbasol can free and discarding the backpack. Beach. Darwin is looking at his watch.
Well, man, you're just in time to be too late, my man. I'm out of here.
Hey!
We pan with Darwin's look to see Nick break out of the tree line onto the sand a couple 100 yards away, sprinting towards him.
Start it up!
Darwin hurries out onto a pontoon and climbs into the cockpit.
No problem, dude.
He hits the ignition and the engine coughs into action, the prop spinning, picking up revs.
Lift anchor and we're airborne.
Hrunk. He swivels to see the digger bust out of the trees, not more than 30 yards away. Nick pulls up short, the monster between him and the plane. He makes a beeline for the water, calling out.
Taxi out, I'll swim to you.
Digger. The raptor takes a look at Nick, already splashing into the surf. Then at the big, noisy thing in the water edge, it chooses the easier prey, charging towards the plane, bellowing. Plane, Darwin. Darwin panics, jams the throttle forward.
Ah!
The plane blasts forward, but the tide has risen and there's a lot of slack in the line from the tail. Driftwood stump, crack. The line snaps taut and yanks the root it was tied to clear off from the stump. Plane. The plane picks up speed, the big driftwood root skittering in its wake. Closer. Driftwood root. The wood skips and splashes on the surf like a dropped water skiing handle. Just as it hops past the camera, there's a sudden rising in the water beside us. Was that the crown of an enormous wedge-shaped reptile head? Or are we just seeing things? We pan to see as the plane lifts off. Digger. Thigh deep in the surf, it bellows in frustration as the plane buzzes away. Nick is swimming out to sea for all he's worth. He looks back to shore. Unless that thing can do the Australian crawl, he's made it. He treads water, waves to the sky.
Come back, it's all clear.
We pan to the sky, and yes, the plane is banking, turning, coming back, dropping towards the surface.
Easy, buddy, easy. No sweat now.
Plane. The plane steadies, pontoon skimming the water surface. Driftwood root. The hunk of the wood skittering along again till whoosh, chomp. A Crocodilsaurus, gigantic sea monster that it shoots its 8-foot-long head up and snatches the trolling bait in its powerful jaws. Crack! The line snaps taut and rips the whole tail section off of the plane. Cockpit, Darwin. Darwin instinctively yanks back on the joystick, trying to pull up.
Whoa.
Nick watches, shocked, as the plane pulls up, but can't hold its yaw with the tail gone. It spirals, heading back straight at Nick, arching towards the water. Closer, closer. Nick takes a breath and goes under. Underwater Nick. Nick tries to get deeper as the shape of the plane passes close overhead and we hear a muffled, watery crash. Surface. Nick pops back to the surface, looks around. We pan to see the plane sitting sideways on the water 50 yards away. Chunks of wing torn off and already floating. It settles upside down, the pontoon still on the surface, keeping it afloat. A beat. Darwin comes up sputtering, hauls himself onto one of the pontoons, and sits gasping for breath. He sees Nick swimming towards him and calls.
Hey man, what happened?
I just saw your tail section come off.
I never did that before. You got a phone?
Yeah, a wet one.
Hey, those security dudes don't have like a submarine, do they?
We pan with his gaze. Something big and long is moving fast, just under the water's surface, straight at Darwin in the wrecked plane. Darwin is standing now, backing his toes away from the water.
Because unless that's Flipper, I'm
Whoosh, snap, splash! The Bronchosaurus breaks surface, snatching Darwin in its jaws, half its enormous body, clearing the water, then smacking down into the water and diving. A huge serrated fluke slapping the surface as it disappears. Nick is stunned for a second, then looks to the shore. The digger is stalking the beach, watching him. Can't go back there. Nick begins to swim parallel to the shore, looking around for the signs of the sea monster. He hears the chop of a helicopter, looks up. Point of view helicopter. A gunship-style helicopter is racing across the water towards him, flying low over the water, a rescue ladder already being lowered. Nick begins to swim towards it. Aerial shot. We look from above as Nick swimming, then tilt to see the Bronchosaurus back and forehead break water as it surfaces to swim after him. Surface. On the first pass, the ladder swings just out of Nick's reach, going too fast. He sees the Bronchosaurus now, raising its head as it streaks towards him, opening its jaws. The helicopter banks and hovers. Nick grabs the ladder. He pulls himself up a few feet, shouts to the rescuers above him.
Take it up, take it up.
Kronosaurus. We ride the back of the Kronosaurus as it powers towards Nick, who is still dangling, temptingly only a few feet above the water surface. We look over its massive, barnacled, horned head as it lunges up, snap, just missing the bottom of the ladder as the helicopter suddenly shoots up into the air. Interior helicopter. We shoot out the side bay, seeing the Kronosaurus and Isla Nublar receding in the distance. Strong arms appear to drag Nick in. He lies back on the floor, chest heaving. The man who leans over his face is wearing the same Grendel Corporation security ranger uniform as the men on the island.
I hope you haven't forgot the can, Mr. Harris.
Nick raises his head slightly, taps his ear if he can't hear.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. The helicopter
Whap! Nando smashes him flush in the face. Lights out. Darkness. Silence. Then, slowly, the sound of the helicopter fades back up, as well as the light. Nick is lying on the floor still, blood on his face. He opens his eyes slowly, blinks. He sees the Barbasol can lying on Nando's lap, just an arm's reach away. Nando is busy, joking in Spanish with the pilot. Nick swivels his eyes. He can see below, out the side bay. They're cruising fairly low of the water, parallel to a thickly populated beach. Lots of swimmers in the water. Nick checks to see that his hands and legs are free, gathers his strength. Exterior beach. Overton stands among the beach blankets, running kids and sunbathers, watching the horizon, worried. A little boy approaches, selling shark tooth necklaces.
Señor, ¿quiere comprar un collar?
¿Has visto un avión?
We hear the helicopter approaching. Chico points up to it.
Aquí está.
Overton mimes a plane's wings with its hands. arms.
No, un avión con alas.
Interior helicopter. Nick takes a couple deep breaths, then lunges, grabbing the aerosol can from Nando and rolling. Exterior helicopter out the open bay. Exterior beach. A gasp from the spectators as on the beach as the man falls out of the helicopter and into the water 40 feet below. Then applause as he pops up to the surface and swims rapidly towards shore. They think it's a stunt. The helicopter banks over the water, heads back to cut him off. Overton walks towards the shore, unsteady on the sand. Nick stands, struggling to get out of the water, hits the beach running through the delighted beach crowd till, whoom, the chopper swoops down at him from behind, struts narrowly missing his head as he dives for the ground, rotators blasting sand at the now terrified people. Nick is running again, aerosol can in hand, shouting to Overton as he sprints past him.
Ask for a cold one of Rodrigo's.
Overton turns and watches Nick duck into the cover of the lunch palapas and fried everything stands at the back edge of the beach, the building at the resort town rising behind them. The helicopter hovers above, turning this way and that like an indecisive hummingbird. Exterior alleyway. Helicopter sounds from above as Nick hustles down a back alley, hugging the wall to stay out of sight from the sky. He darts across the alley and into the back door of a cafe. Interior kitchen, Rodrigo's. An old man sits at a small table, shucking oysters. He barely looks up as Nick enters, crosses to check out the action in the bar, then turns to look around the kitchen. Cooler. An ancient Coca-Cola cooler buzzes in one corner. Nick moves to it, lifts the lid, and sets the Barbasol can in the midst of dozens of bottles of beer. He turns to the old man.
Voy a enviar a alguien para recuperarlo.
The old man shrugs and keeps on shucking. Nick looks up as the helicopter sound grows louder. Exterior street, late day. A vendor pushes his cart down a back street, hawking popsicles.
Paletas, muy frescos, muy ricos. Aquí tengo las paletas.
He passes and we see Nick looking pretty beat up, standing back in the doorway. He is checking out of the little Hotel Delphin across the street as he speaks softly on a cell phone.
Just do what we agreed on before. I'll contact you when I'm in the clear.
Exterior street, Rodrigo's bar. Overton stands at the payphone across the street from a bar called Rodrigo's. Beyond him, we see thugs wearing sunglasses cruising up and down the streets on the lookout for Nick.
It's very hot right now. Keep your head down.
Exterior street, Nick is on his cell phone.
I'll do my best.
Nick clicks the cell phone off, pockets it. He considers the hotel, decides it's worth a try, limps across towards it. Interior hotel lobby. The desk clerk is reading a comic book. He doesn't look up when Nick limps in.
Joven, has sido alguien buscándome, esperándome en el cuarto.
No, Mr. Harris, nobody been looking for you.
Nick considers, reaches to take his keys from the cubbyhole. Corridor. Nick limps towards us down the corridor. He turns the key, opens the door. Nando stands there with a different aerosol can in his hand, pointed at Nick's face. Nick is too exhausted to run.
What's that supposed to be?
Nando hits the button and sprays Nick in the face. Lights out again. Darkness. Silence. But this time, as the light begins to fade up, it is with the sound of yodeling. Interior tower bedroom, Nick, evening. Nick wakes in a cozy-looking bed in a round, stone-walled room. He looks around, confused. Yodeling? He sits up, barefoot, wearing clean pants and a t-shirt. He stands, steadies himself a little woozy, then crosses immediately to the thick oaken door. Tries to open it. Locked. He crosses to the opposite side of the room and sticks his head out of a tall rectangular opening. Exterior tower, evening. We see Nick's head pop out through the window of a stone tower at one corner of a medieval castle on a mountainside in the Swiss Alps. He looks right. On the opposite parapet are two yodelers in archaic lederhosen and plumed hats, giving their tonsils a workout for the crowd of tourists standing down below on the other side of the moat. The yodelers finish. The tourists applaud enthusiastically, and Nick ducks his head back in. Interior tower.
I'm a prisoner in a theme park.
He looks around. His suitcase is open on a stand, his jacket hanging on an armoire. Heraldic banners hang on the walls. There is a TV set and remote control. He picks up the remote, flicks the set on, begins to surf. French-speaking channels, German-speaking channels, Spanish, Italian. We're definitely in Europe here. He settles on a channel playing a nature documentary about the dinosaur pests. The narrator with a plumy British accent.
Comstognathus rarely exceeds a full-grown pheasant in size.
TV screen. We see a trio of compies making forays in to bite at a cornered, hissing raccoon.
But though diminutive, are extremely aggressive.
Nick.
No kidding.
He flicks the TV off. A booming knock at the door.
It's locked.
A key fumbling. Then the door opens to reveal a butler dressed in livery. He has slight Swiss accent. They are ready for you downstairs, Mr. Harris. The butler steps away without closing the door. Nick considers. Interior great hall. Nick, fully dressed now, comes down a stone staircase that Basil Rathbone should be sword fighting on. To see Adrian Joyce, a man only slightly older than Nick and very fit, swinging a halberd around in an elaborate martial arts display, thrusting, parrying, chopping, slicing, thoroughly enjoying himself till he sees that Nick is entered. He freezes in backswing and smiles.
It's not only for ceremony, the halberd. This was guard to protect the Pope at the Vatican. Could do a good deal of damage with those, of course. They also got an automatic pistol somewhere under those crazy uniforms.
Maybe you should apply for a job.
Joyce crosses to hang the halberd over an enormous fireplace.
Well, I haven't seen you since what?
Tegucigalpa. I helped get you kicked out of the country.
We deported for Honduras. What a horror I must have been perpetrated.
Selling guns to the wrong people, as I recall.
But they were the right people when I began the transaction. The political sands are ever shifting.
He indicates the very huge great hall around them.
Something the Swiss understand better than anyone. This castle was built in the late 15th century by a local warlord and a self-styled baron seeking to isolate himself from the endless armed conflicts of Europe and, if possible, to profit from them.
Joyce indicates a huge tapestry hanging on the wall, portraying a bloody battle with horses, lances, swords, shields, and plenty of dead foot soldiers littering the battlefield.
He hired men and trained them to fight, selling, I should say, renting their services to whomever put cash on the barrel hand. Security forces, invasion, sieges. The Swiss mercenary was, forced to be reckoned with. My employer, the current Baron von Drax, is the principal stockholder and CEO of the Grandel International Corporation.
You make a hell of a tour guide, Joyce. What do you want with me?
You have something that belongs to us.
I lost it in the ocean.
We'll match Hammond's offer.
I made my deal with him.
But you haven't delivered it, have you?
Nick makes a quick assessment of his situation.
It's somewhere safe.
I'm happy to hear that, Nick.
Joyce crosses to Nick.
I do apologize for the abrupt nature of your transportation here, but the sensitive nature of the material in question.
Like that it's illegal?
An edge of menace enters Joyce's tone.
There was some consideration given to torturing the whereabouts out of you. I suggested that, given the history, this would be the counterproductive. Besides, we want to have you work for us.
Interior passageway. Electric lamps on old torch sconces light the way as Joyce leads Nick down a narrow passageway on another stone staircase.
Grendel plans to use the material from Jurassic Park in much the same way as envisioned by your Mr. Hammond.
United Nations.
When the infestation of creatures begins to seriously inconvenience the first world, the United Nations will snap to attention. Previously rejected solution, drastic as they may seem, will be reconsidered. Solutions we'd be able to offer.
For a price.
Naturally. And then there's a related project, the one we hope you will become involved in.
Nick slows as he hears a massive pounding ahead, like a pile driver, rhythmically destroying a paved parking lot.
Remodeling.
That's what we tell the tourists.
He unlatches a dungeon door in front of them as they step into interior dungeon red room. They stand at the entry platform above a well-lit stone dungeon, a few old chains still bolted to the wall for effect. Below them, nearly filling the room, is a heavily plated ankylosaurus, repeatedly thrashing the bowling ball-sized bone protuberance at the end of its massive tail as a cudgel, knocking dents into the wall and sending rock dust flying. Nick, Joyce. Joyce tries to fit his words in between the rhythmic wham of the ankylosaurus assault.
A souvenir of our cleanup effort on Isla Nubla. We raised it from an egg.
From an embryo, to be precise.
Sherman has appeared behind them. He is a young genetics whiz and sorely lacking in people skills.
Nick, this is our chief of applied genetics, Sherman Fosdick.
Like the embryos you stole from us? Maybe we should put them down with her for a while.
Be polite, Sherman. We haven't even had dinner yet.
Joyce leads Nick away, whispering as they go.
Too much Dungeons and Dragons, not enough socializing with other children.
Why bother having that thing if you're going to keep it shut up in a dungeon?
Oh, one never knows when an ankylosaurus might come in handy.
They have reached another metal reinforced door. This one, however, opens with a swipe of Joyce's ID card.
Come see the new wing.
Interior laboratory chamber. Nick and Joyce step into something out of a James Bond movie. A cavern hollowed out in the core of the mountain beneath the castle. Metal stairs leading down into a maze of brightly lit biological testing labs.
The castle sits on an enormous cavern in the mountain. The original Baron kept his wine down here. We've expanded a bit.
They start down the stairs.
The corporation paid for all this?
We have several products that are doing very well at the moment. An insect-resistant rye grain, super strains of hops and barley, and of course, we were the first in Europe to market pre-sliced cheese. Dairy is very important here in Switzerland.
A chilling roar echoes through the chamber.
One of your cows?
Interior raptor enclosure X1, Spartacus, an 8-foot-tall Deinonychus, trots in circles, slamming itself against the I-beam that it closes it, roars, and generally throws a fit in a bull ring-sized enclosure. Spray painted on a day-glow orange on its side is an X1, and attached to one side of its head, just above the ear hole, is a regular box about the size of a cell phone. Interior observation room. A woman in a lab coat with the ubiquitous Grendel International logo on the pocket stands watching the beast and writing on a chart. This is Maya Lundberg. Several TV screens are mounted on the wall above her, providing various angles of the beast's activity, while the panel in front of her sports half-dozen vital function monitors of the EEG, MRI, and heart rate sort. She doesn't look up from her work.
This is X1, our alpha male. Not in the best moods at the moment.
If you keep them in captivity, you've got to accept a certain amount of neurotic behavior.
Training, not captivity. Please.
Whatever.
Maya Lundberg, our head of behavioral modification, meet Mr. Harris.
This gets Maya's attention. She turns to check Nick out.
The trespasser?
We all followed your progress on the island. Sort of like an episode of Survivor.
Nick steps up to the window and looks in at the raging beast.
So this is what, like a mid-sized Tyrannosaurus?
Diagnosis. Terrible
Yeah.
claw in Latin.
That's how I would say
Deinonychus draxi. It's a subspecies.
it.
Sherman checks the timer, looks at the panel instruments.
Wow, look at that adrenaline.
Did you shut him down? He's gonna hurt himself.
Yeah, X1's too cagey to hurt himself, no matter how we pump him up.
Sherman steps up to the radio transmitter, punches the timer, turns the dial.
Call it when the reticular formation goes blue.
Maya's watching a brain scan image, which is rapidly changing from red to cooler colors. The Deinonychus begins to stagger a bit, appears confused.
Oh, look at that. And I'm only restricting acetylcholine.
Don't make him fall over again. His ribs.
Come on, baby. Nice soft landing.
The Deinonychus lowers itself into a crouch, partially supporting itself with its shorter front legs, breathing heavily and staring somewhat glassy into space. Nick is amazed.
We placed a few strategic implants to let us control its hormones by radio signals.
Not hormones, neuropeptides.
Right now, it's experiencing something like acute chronic fatigue syndrome. Before you came in, the parts of the gray matter controlling rage and aggressive behavior were stimulated.
You remember the cockfights in Honduras? When a rooster gets mad, blood flows in its comb, responding to the adrenaline. But if the handler put the comb in its mouth and sucked the blood into it, the rooster got mad before he even saw his opponent.
Fortunately for us, reptiles have a very compartmentalized brain. Just like chickens, we don't get much spillover when we want to induce a specific emotion.
For what purpose?
Maya and Sherman look to Joyce. It's not their place to give out this information.
Let's leave that for tomorrow. You must be exhausted. You'll have traveled all the way from Jurassic era to the 21st century.
Maya steps forward and takes his hand.
Mr. Harris, I look forward to working with you.
Joyce takes a last look in at the pacified X1. Nick surreptitiously glances down at his hand. Maya has palmed a torn corner of her behavioral chart into it, on which she has written, "Do not give them the embryos."
You kind of wonder what he's thinking, don't you?
Nick and Maya exchange a quick look. Then Nick turns to look at the dinosaur. X1 seems to focus for a moment, meeting his eye.
He's wondering which one of us he should eat first.
Fade to black. Exterior mountain pass. A Land Rover with an open observation port cut to the roof glides over a spectacular mountain pass. Interior Land Rover. Nick and Joyce sit on the bench seats at the rear of as Kroner, Joyce's unctuous aide de camp, drives.
We have our own value to work in, and being principal employer in the canton affords its own protection. The Swiss, as the world knows, are quite capable of keeping a secret.
They roll past a security checkpoint, waved through by the guard.
The West Road, Kroner.
Absolutely, Colonel.
Colonel?
Something the boys in Africa used to call me.
Joyce stands to look out from the port, Nick following. Exterior Mountain Valley training facility. Several bunker-like buildings and large cage enclosures are clustered in the bowl of the little valley. They pull up beside a long cement chute with a steel meshed roof that extends out the side of the mountain. Sherman and Maya are waiting in a cutaway Humvee with a dashboard filled with the kinds of monitors and controls we saw in the underground observation room. Around them in various pursuit vehicles are the training staff, a dozen hard-looking mercenaries with an array of long-handled electric prods, wicked-looking restraints, and heavy-duty weapons.
Has the ejector been set up?
Ready to rip.
Let's bring him out then.
Nick realizes what's going on.
Whoa, now you're not going to let.
I assure you, they're totally under control.
A Deinonychus and then another trot out through the chute and stand in the opening, standing several yards away from the humans, watching them warily. Both have regulators on the side of their heads. We can tell by the spray paint on their sides that this is X2 and X3.
See?
Orestes and Perseus.
See.
These are more of these Diano.
Nicus Draxi. They already possess the super sensitive smell and hearing, the power, the pack hunting instincts we desired. Then Sherman got busy splicing genes.
See, a section of DNA from the egg-stealing raptor, the Ornithosteles, to lengthen the form and give them more dexterity with their fingers, and a section from the domestic dog that seems to foster obedience, and then respectively to training, and a small section of human DNA that we hope will increase their problem-solving capability.
If you don't get a leash on those things, we're going to have a major problem to solve.
Maya, let's give Mr. Harris a demonstration.
Maya stands in the Humvee, calls out in a commanding voice.
Raptors?
The beasts respond, turning to watch her intently. She signals with her arm, pointing down the dirt road that leads ahead into a stand of trees.
Forward.
X2 and X3 begin to trot towards the road. Kroner pulls out to follow them, and the whole menagerie of vehicles joins in. Maya's control Humvee just behind the Land Rover. Joyce hands Nick a thick red armband about the size of a blood pressure cuff, like the ones he and all the other staff are wearing.
Put this on. It releases pheromones the raptors have been trained to avoid.
Nick slips the armband on.
Doesn't smell like anything.
To them, it does.
Nick watches the beast trotting up ahead.
They look different.
The raptors have, in fact, changed color since they first came out of the chute, from grayish to a mottled green-brown that matches the countryside around them.
They're regular chameleons. Put them in front of a brick wall and you'd swear you'd see the mortar.
So we're taking them for a stroll.
We're in a convoy moving through enemy territory.
Nick gives him a look.
I think you'd let this colonel thing get to your head.
Joyce just smiles as they enter the trees, the road narrowing somewhat. The Deinonychus slow down up ahead, then stop, alert. Closer, raptors. Quick shots of the raptor's nostrils, sniffing, eyes darting. Nick, Joyce. Nick looks around them into the trees.
What's out there?
They'll know before we do.
X1 and 2. The raptors suddenly dart away into the trees to the left, shrieking with aggression. Automatic gunfire opens up from the position that they're running at. An ambush emplacement dug beneath a huge fallen log. Nick ducks instinctively, but Joyce remains standing.
Don't worry, it's blank ammunition. Have to get them used to the noise.
Raptors, ambush bunker. The raptors hit the bunker on the dead run. The lead one leaping and standing on the log above the firing position with both legs. The second charging straight in and thrusting into the opening with its terrible claw. The two rapidly demolish the position, soft dirt and chunks of bark, wood, and moss flying in every direction till they have unearthed a rectangular iron protective gauge containing two terrified mercenaries who have dropped their weapons and scream for help as the massive creatures roll the whole thing over and over, jabbing in with their sickle claws and stomping the bars out of shape. Staff, the other mercenaries, have dismounted and moved forward nervously with their various weapons and gear.
Oh, shut him down, Sherman.
Sherman is worried, watching his instrument panel.
They're on full restraint already.
Nick leaps out of the Land Rover, grabs the nasty weapon he sees, something like an RPG launcher from a mercenary, aims.
Grab him!
Mercenaries dive on Nick, wresting the grenade launcher from him and pinning him on the ground. The raptors are subdued as well, breathing heavily but sitting back on their haunches on either side of the battered protective cage. The men inside are equally battered but alive. Maya walks out to within a few yards of them, hands held before her.
Easy, easy.
Nick watches from the ground, amazed at her courage or stupidity. Maya turns and calls to Sherman in the control vehicle.
Give them a blast of serotonin as a reward.
Sherman twists the dial, the raptor's eyes half closed with bliss.
All right, just a little get up and go.
Sherman tweaks a different dial. Maya points back towards the chute.
Raptors, home.
Amazingly, the two monsters right themselves and, totally ignoring the cage, begin to move back towards the road and the chute.
Let him up.
The mercenaries warily let Nick go. He sits up, watches the Deinonychus pass.
You almost got those men killed.
On the contrary, we were just saved from a deadly ambush by our advanced scouts.
The mercenaries remount their vehicles and begin to follow the Deinonychus back, while a pair of medics hurry to the cage.
Why should some poor grunt have to walk point through enemy territory if you've got these creatures to do it? When Cortez conquered Mexico, he unleashed ferocious dogs on terrified Aztecs.
We're fighting with arrows and spears, with real bullets.
In a combat situation, they'll be fully armored. Just think of the psychological effect. Talk about shock and awe.
You want to use them as soldiers.
Shock troops, SWAT team, riot control, search and destroy, the ultimate in special forces.
Maya hops into the Humvee, not happy.
What took so long?
Not sure. They were overexcited.
The fact is, you don't know.
They pull away. Nick walks over towards the cage. The medics have had no luck getting the twisted entry lid to open.
Gonna have to torch this to get it open.
We'll send somebody out.
He watches Nick, who is still a bit shaken.
You've been the first man in on some of these operations, Nick. You know the casualty rate.
You can't control them.
Maya has taken them a long way, but she's not a professional soldier.
Nick turns to look at him. This is the pitch.
I know your history, Nick. You've always done what you were told extremely well, and you never were asked too many questions. You've been used and abused, and you don't have too much to show for it. Isn't it time you got paid for what you're worth?
Exterior training enclosure. A smaller Deinonychus X5 Achilles, wearing a kind of harness around its body, paces in an outdoor enclosure about the size of the lion tamer's cage at the circus. A hunk of beef is hung just outside the bars. The X5 approaches it warily. Zzz. It receives an enormous electrical jolt administered by the Zest, a rather sadistic mercenary at a console just beyond the bars.
We've learned our lesson, maybe?
The Humvee pulls up and Maya charges out of it.
Zeiss, what are you doing?
It continues to eat whenever it pleases. It needs to learn.
The only thing it could learn from this is that you're a nitwit and it probably already knows that. And the harness.
The neuro implant induces nausea, not pain.
This is behavior modification, Zeiss, not torture.
Joyce and Nick have returned as well. Kroner standing at something like attention behind them. Maya crosses to a narrow door.
Unlock.
He's very upset.
At you. Unlock.
Zeiss hits a switch and we hear a bolt shoot open. X5 hears it too, snapping to attention. Nick watches as Maya slides open a narrow door, squeezes in, chang. Zeiss hits the switch and the door closes behind her. X5 stands across the cage from her, wary. Maya doesn't move from next to the door for a moment, watching the beast.
Stay.
She slowly crosses to the beast, never losing eye contact.
Easy. Easy.
She is right next to X5 now, holding its eyes as she deftly unclips the harness and pulls it off.
Good boy.
She turns her back to the monster, slowly walks to the door. The door shoots open. She squeezes out. Chang! The door shuts behind her. She turns to Joyce, still angry.
Every time I start to make some progress with this animal, one of your thugs sets it back 2 weeks.
We have a timetable to be aware of.
Well, you better push it back then.
She strides away. Joyce indicates X5 to Nick.
A relatively new recruit. You know, the type, lots of attitude, a bit wild.
How many of these things do you have?
Unfortunately, the genetic engineering involved in their creation renders them sterile. If we're going to expand and have a breeding program,
We need the embryos that you stole from us.
I'm not so sure that's a good idea. What if you take them out for a spin and one decides to go AWOL?
oh, even if the neuroimplant malfunction, they wouldn't get far. Their bodies are capable of creating insulin, but lack the stimulant that causes it to be secreted. Only we can perform this function.
Without us, they can last only an hour, maybe less.
The patrol we went on this morning, she didn't train them to do that, did she?
Sherman looks away.
There was a South African gentleman named Vroot. Wonderful storyteller. Seemed to be getting on very well with his trainees.
What happened to him?
That's not totally clear.
We found one of his shoes.
Joyce slaps Nick on the back, winks.
Big risk, big pay, my friend. Dare to be great.
Interior castle dining hall. A long wooden table, tapestries on the wall. There should be tankards of ale and serving wenches, but instead, it's Nick, Maya, Sherman, and Joyce sitting down for dinner with Baron Herman von Drax, a very self-satisfied character who has spent a lifetime getting whatever he wants.
Courage, intelligence, the so-called killer instinct. These are qualities I have always looked for in my employees, but it is rare to find them all in the same individual. So I think, why not give nature a helping hand?
Human DNA we used in the Dionychus came from Baron von Drax.
Nick looks at von Drax over.
Now that you mention it, I can see the resemblance.
Maya hides a smile, but the Baron is not distracted.
We created our warriors from only the finest ingredients.
You can combine behavioral attributes like you're making a cake.
Sorry, this is outlined in weird. At the moment, we can narrow them down to certain sections of the chain. It is possible that the other lead desirable traits might, sorry, there's something really weird with this script going on, might hitchhike, so to speak, and then end up as part of the organism.
But this mix gives you something greater than its parts. They are full of hybrid vigor, like the Swiss.
The Swiss aren't sterile.
Von Drax shoots Nick a hard, appraising look, then bursts out laughing.
I am the 23rd Baron von Drax, Mr. Harris. I assure you that we are not.
Nick sits back.
The Second World War, there was a program to train sea lions to place magnetic mines on enemy ships. Tireless swimmers able to stay under without oxygen tanks.
Did they blow anything up?
Mostly fishing boats, they couldn't pass up a meal.
We're training our animals not to eat what they kill. That's been the most difficult instinct to modify so far.
So,
He looks to Joyce.
the embryos are on their way, yeah?
Mr. Harris is still considering our offer.
Von Drax looks stricken.
Consider it as quickly as you can, Mr. Harris. Patience is not part of my genetic heritage.
Interior tower room night. Nick sits on the edge of his bed watching a phony-looking war movie. He clicks it off, crosses to the door, tries it. Not locked. Interior stairway. Nick comes down the spiral staircase of the tower, noting several surveillance cameras as he goes. Exterior castle night. Nick steps out into the torchlit parapet of the castle. He sees Maya sitting, brooding, on the base of an ancient catapult. He approaches, taps the catapult.
I could send you over the moat with this if you'd like.
Maya looks up, smiles.
May take you up on that.
That's not the Grendel International spirit I'm hearing.
Maya shoots a look down into the courtyard. Kroner stands leaning against the wall, pretending he's just out for a smoke, monitoring the conversation. Nick sees him, understands. Maya rises and they begin to stroll around the parapet.
Had a few setbacks today.
So how does one get to be a dinosaur trainer?
Oh, I got my doctorate in behavioral science. Did some field work with wolves in the north of Canada till the grant money started drying up. And then, well, there aren't that many practical applications. So I took a job with the circus.
Circus.
In the ring with the whip and the chair, pushing the big cats through their routines. Then there was a certain trapeze artist I wanted to get away from. So when I was approached for this job,
You knew what you were getting into.
For my 15th birthday, my father promised to take me to opening day of Jurassic Park. I've still got the ticket. When I heard I'd be working with the animals that used to be extinct, well, I didn't ask too many questions about what they were going to be trained to do.
In the cage this morning, how did you know that thing wouldn't go for you?
Maya stops and they look out over the town down the mountain. Only a few lights still on.
When a wolf pack works a herd of elk, they'll single out the weakest, an orphan juvenile, an older adult on its last legs, and look it straight in the eye.
Interior security room monitor, Joyce and Von Drax. Joyce and Von Drax stand watching and listening to Nick and Maya, who are being tracked by a surveillance camera.
There's a conversation of death that goes on between them, hunter and prey, almost an understanding. I've seen the rest of the herd continue to graze peacefully while one of their number is set upon and killed.
Joyce turns to reassure the Baron.
I wouldn't worry too much about Nick. He'll come around.
Exterior parapet. Nick watches Maya's face, animated in the torchlight.
20 yards away, there's this grisly murder, and they keep chewing grass because they know it's not their turn.
So you just looked it in the eye and you could tell.
She's a bit of a hypnotist, our Maya.
Joyce steps out from the base of the security tower.
But she doesn't really approve of our goals here.
Wild animals should not.
First of all, they're not wild. They're bioengineered. We created them. And like any other weaponized organism, their effectiveness depends on their skill and who's deploying them.
He turns to Nick.
Like any good soldier, eh, Nick?
Good soldiers care what side they're on.
Oh, we're on the side of the angels here.
He pulls out a photograph and hands it to Nick. Point of view photograph. In the photo, a little girl of about 10 sits on a pony, smiling at the camera.
Who's this?
Parapet. Joyce looks smug, having played his trump card.
She's the little girl whose life you're going to save.
Interior strategy room wall screen. On the large wall screen is a blow up of an aerial photo of a section of a port city.
This section of the docks in the Tangier has mostly been abandoned.
A ground level photo of dilapidated shacks and warehouses appear on the screen.
Our sources inform us that Isabel Cartier is being held somewhere in the quarter.
Wider. Nick sits with Joyce as he clicks the next image into the screen.
Her father is Bertrand Cartier, chairman of the Dumal Group, which maintains substantial financial holdings of many France's formal colonies.
A well-dressed businessman, Cartier's, appears on the screen.
2 of his employees have already been kidnapped. The first, a minor functionary, was killed during a protracted negotiation. With a second, a junior vice president, the company paid the ransom immediately, with the same result.
A photo of French police carrying a loaded body bag out of a tenement building appears.
And the kidnappers?
They seem to be motivated by personal grudge against Monsieur Cartier as much as by the lure of the ransom money. They call themselves the North African Liberation Front, but the little we know of them suggests that their motives are more criminal than political.
You're sure she's still alive?
Joyce hits the clicker again. A shaky video appears on the screen. Several black hooded kidnappers move about in the foreground and background of a smallish room as little Isabel faces the lens, sitting at a central table.
Papa, Maman, j'étais en bonne santé, m'avoue, mais bon, manque beaucoup. C'est mon poisson était fort. Et tu sais quoi pas, démon. She says she's scared and wants to go home.
They cross to a model of the waterfront quarter laid out on a table.
They arrived yesterday. They've given Cartier a week to deliver 2 million euros.
A week is
all we got. We only have hope that they'll keep her alive, at least till the ransom exchange.
I could take a half dozen good men in.
And what? Knock on doors? The quarter is half a mile square. Our Deinonychus, given a few personal articles, will sniff the girl out within minutes.
I'll let one of them find her and we'll
come in with guns blazing. You notice in the video, they always have her in the center to shoot them. You put her in the middle of a firefight, but if only the shooting should be there if any comes near.
And what if your dinosaurs bust in and one of the kidnappers keeps his head long enough to turn a gun on her?
Then she will be spared the very graphic sight of what happens next.
Exterior Valley Day. Nick stands before the 5 X's who are lined up outside the chute staring at him. Sherman, portable radio control in hand, and Maya stands behind him. Behind them are Joyce, Zeiss, and dozens of Von Drax mercenaries, armed and wary. Everyone is wearing one of the pheromone armbands. Nick is in drill sergeant mode now, standing at the parade rest and calling out.
Any soldier worth his pay has a name to answer to, not a number. Even the most sniveling little lapdog answers to its name. Zeiss.
Sorry, guys, 1 second. Sir?
See what I mean?
Nick walks slowly along the line of X's from highest to lowest.
Achilles, Hector, Perseus, Orestes.
He pauses in front of X1, the biggest and most uneasy, looking of the group, considers.
Spartacus.
He turns to address the humans.
You will learn these names and from this moment forward will not fail to refer to and address the warriors by them. Only 3 members of the team will be chosen for the mission at hand, but all will be trained for it.
He looks specifically at Maya.
From now on, and this is very important, all military directives will be given by me and by me only. Is that understood?
Interior laboratory chamber, raptor enclosure. Very low light level. Spartacus slowly moves across the room towards a table with a soccer ball, a boombox radio, and a roast pig on a platter lined up on it. Observation room. Nick, Maya, Sherman, and behind them Joyce watch a night vision version of Spartacus movement on a monitor.
Okay, give him the works.
Sherman flips the switch and enclosure. Blam, pop, pop, pop. Sounds of gunfire and flashes on all sides of Spartacus. He roars, then hurries to the table, sniffs each item, settling on the boombox, which he deftly lifts up in one clawed hand and moves back to the other side of the enclosure. Observation room. Nick clicks a stopwatch.
Stimulus off.
Sherman hits a switch and the fireworks stop. The lights turn on in the enclosure. Spartacus turns to glare at Nick. Nick nods back to him, clicks on a speaker.
Excellent work, Spartacus. Shoot him some love, Sherman.
Sherman turns to dial.
You're not overdoing it with the serotonin.
Tomorrow we'll reward and punish with insulin. Remind them that we control their vital functions.
We're making them into a bunch of drug addicts.
Someday a pat on the back and a good boy might be enough to motivate them.
He stares back at the defiant Spartacus.
I don't think we're there yet.
Exterior Valley. Military music as we follow the raptors over and through a kind of obstacle course. They balance as they cross a single log bridge, climb a mock-up of a 2-story tenement wall with fire escape, jump down, pick up speed to hurl a trench full of fire, and finally slow to a cautious walk, sniffing at the ground as they go. We pan to Nick, Joyce, and Maya watching, all of them wearing helmets with safety visors, standing behind a protective wall.
Drax is not going to be happy if one of his investments gets blown apart here.
If they can't sniff out a mine 6 inches under the dirt, their aggressiveness becomes a liability. Look at this.
We shift to see the raptors. The others are holding back, watching, as Achilles sniffs his way through the minefield, occasionally pressing his tail against the ground.
There's a scent gland under his tail.
He's marking a trail for the others.
Did you teach him that?
I wish I had. Saves time, only risk is one member of the team.
Insightful behavior.
They watch as Achilles gets to the other side of the minefield, calls back to the others with a clicking noise. The other 4 wind their way, single file, along the exact route Achilles took.
Makes you wonder what else they've been cooking up.
Spartacus, at the rear, shoots a look to Nick. Exterior training enclosure, another day. Maya stands at the center of the cage where she took the harness off Achilles. She is surrounded by the raptors, standing at attention. She has an armful of little girls' clothing. Sherman and Nick stand outside of the enclosure with Zeiss and a few other mercenaries.
When each one sniffs her clothing, I'll give him a jolt.
We want them to protect her, not be afraid of her.
What then?
Oxytocin to the forebrain.
I'm not going into labor.
In males, it reduces infanticide, promotes parenting behavior, and long-term pair bonding.
Daddy drug. Didn't know there was one.
I'm doing this under protest.
She dials in the oxytocin as Maya offers the clothing up for each raptor to sniff.
We should repeat this every day till the mission. That smell is all they'll have to track her down.
Exterior Valley, practice buildings, another day. 4 practice buildings, shells that have been rigged up to resemble what we have seen in the waterfront quarter, stand not too far from the chute. 3 of the raptors, Spartacus, Perseus, and Orestes, trot out of the chute, each now wearing something like a flak vest strapped around their bodies. They cluster together. Observation blind. Nick, Joyce, Maya, and Sherman are in the dugout observation blind nearby, watching the raptors directly on a video monitors.
Body armor doesn't seem to bother him.
They're used to harnesses. It's fairly lightweight.
Maya points to a meter.
We're talking it over.
CU meter. An oscilloscope-like readout is hopping all over the place.
Ultrasounds.
Raptors. The 3 raptors have spread out as they approach the building. Throats working, but no sounds we can hear coming out.
Way out of our range.
Spartacus. Spartacus lifts his snout, catching the scent. He makes a deep grunt, and the others join him, looking at a smallish shed made of corrugated metal. They split up, each taking a different spot to surround the shed. Observers.
That's it, fellas. Triangulate.
Spartacus raptors. Spartacus opens his jaws to make another ultrasound, and the 3 charge in unison. Wham! Orestes headbutts through the front door. Smash! Perseus hops feet first through a side window. Crunch! Spartacus hits the opposite side, punching his forearms through the corrugated metal and ripping a huge section of the wall away. Pop, 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 bam, bam! Test dummies dressed like the kidnappers and holding weapons are triggered to open up, firing loud bursts of blank ammo. The raptors rip into the dummies, weapons and body parts flying, dispatching a quartet of them in seconds. They turn on the last dummy. Orestes about to take a bite, then freezing. It is a dummy of a small girl, dressed like Isabel Cartier's In the video, Orestes sniffs, knocking the dummy over in its side. Spartacus grunts, and Orestes moves away. The alpha raptor steps in, sniffs, then gently takes the dummy in its claws and rights it. Observation blind. Joyce is ecstatic.
It was spectacular. Even with the kidnappers loaded up and on full alert.
Thin walls, no corridors to go down.
They're ready.
Sure, they're ready to take on an army of dummies. Flesh and blood kidnappers, though.
Ready or not, the payoff is scheduled for Thursday. We go tomorrow.
Joyce climbs out of the bunker. Nick is not pleased with the hurry up.
Blast them with bliss, Sherman, and feed them when they get back inside.
Interior cavern laboratory night. Not much happening in the lab tonight. A maintenance man runs a floor buffer. Interior raptor enclosure. Lights half dim. The raptors move slowly, uneasy. Interior observation room. Nick sits alone watching his warriors.
You be careful tomorrow.
Nick looks up to see Maya joining him.
I'm not the one they'll be shooting at.
It's not the kidnappers you have to worry about. When it goes down, just make sure you're somewhere safe.
I've seen you walk right up to them.
When I was in the ring with the big cats, I learned never to think they were my friends. You turn your back and, well, they can't help themselves.
What if one went for you when you were looking it straight in the eye?
If you let them have the DNA, they'll probably let you go.
Not here. I was held in the desert for 14 months. No war had been declared, so we were just... If we'd all disappeared, nobody would have made a fuss. She must be so scared.
Maya smiles sadly, gives him a kiss on the cheek.
Good luck tomorrow.
She exits. Nick goes back to contemplating the raptors. Fade to black. Exterior dockside, Tangier night. A big truck pulls up at the edge of the decaying Tangier waterfront, a battered SUV gliding to a stop next to it. The tailgate of the truck swings down hydraulically, becoming a ramp. Spartacus, Perseus, and Orestes step down the ramp. They are rigged up in a protective armor with the addition of a small night vision video camera on each, mounted on the shoulder. SUV Nick. The interior of the SUV is totally different than its outside, very high tech, with 3 monitors being fed by each of the raptors, letting us know what they see. Nick is wearing a pheromone armband and speaker set on his head, leaving his hands free.
Squadron hold, camouflage.
Perseus. Perseus pauses by an ancient 2-story warehouse. A faded sign indicates it has something to do with olive oil. Perseus sniffs, then lifts his head and opens his jaws wide, calling ultrasonically. Spartacus, then Orestes, appear to join him. They put their heads together, facing the building. SUV Nick. Nick gets a good look at the building from the Raptors' cameras, checks on his locator grid.
Looks like we've got something. Sector 12, building 362.
He brings the SUV to a stop, unhooks his seatbelt, and lifts a short-barreled automatic weapon from the seat beside him.
Let's just hope it's not a meatpacking plant.
Warehouse. Perseus stays by the front entrance as Orestes moves around the back to the loading dock, and Spartacus painstakingly climbs the fire escape that leads up to a second-floor window. Interior warehouse. We are inside the warehouse on the ground floor, rows of barrels full of olive oil taking up much of the space. We move past them to see a trio of kidnappers asleep on cots, weapons within arm's reach. 4 more kidnappers sit at the small table under a harsh light playing cards, their weapons propped against chair legs or lying on the table. We continue past these men to a set of iron stairs. Craning up to the second-floor loft, we push through an open door into an old office. 2 more kidnappers asleep on mattress on the floor, while a third sits near a window, feet up on an ancient desk. Uzi on his lap, yawning and nodding off. In the middle of the room, curled up in a big upholstered easy chair, with the stuffing coming out the arms, is Isabel Cartier's. Exterior street night. Nick is out of the SUV now, ready to roll, looking in through the window at the grid locator. Locator screen. The Raptors, represented by 3 blinking red dots, have surrounded the building. Nick, tense, speaks low into his headset.
All together, boys. Your go to enter.
Exterior warehouse, fire escape ladder, Spartacus. We watch the claws of Spartacus' foot grip the next rung up. He shifts his weight over so slowly, the fire escape metal creaking just a bit. One more step. He's up on the platform looking into the window. Interior office. The kidnapper at the desk is nearly asleep, his back to the window as the massive head appears behind him, peering in. Exterior fire escape. Spartacus calls an ultrasound. Then interior warehouse office. Smash! Spartacus thrusts his head through the window, roars, then grabs the dozing kidnapper in his jaws, the man screaming as he is lifted and shaken. Ground floor. Wham! Perseus batters his way through the front entrance door, sprawling off balance, knocking it into piled barrels and sending them crashing to and rolling on the floor. Crash! Rip! Orestes begins to tear apart the metal loading dock door in the rear. The kidnappers at the table grab for their weapons, but bam! Perseus charges through them, splintering the table with a mighty blow and sending the men flying. Interior command warehouse. The mercenaries grab weapons and run out.
Go, go, go!
As they run out, we tilt down to a monitor. We see a terrified kidnapper firing his weapon towards the camera. Interior olive oil warehouse office. Spartacus has smashed his way through the window. The 2 men on the mattress awake now and bap, 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 firing at him. Isabel is sitting up, confused and terrified. She ducks as a Dionysus foot clamps into the arm of the chair. Spartacus using it as a springboard to leap across the room into the kidnappers. Isabel throws her blanket over her head and curls into a fetal position. We hear thrashing and screaming. Ground floor. Bap, 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 bap. The kidnappers scatter, firing their weapons, tripping over barrels and upending furniture, sliding on the olive oil slickened floor. But both Orestes and Perseus are now in full attack mode, leaping, sliding, stabbing with their sickle claws, grabbing the men in their jaws and hurling them across the room. 2 of the kidnappers duck out of the front entrance. One kidnapper tries to run up the iron stairs to the office. He gets halfway up, then jump! Orestes nails him from behind. Exterior street, night. Nick is hurrying down the streets toward the warehouse. The 2 escaped kidnappers come rushing around the corner to see him. Bap, 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 bap. They open up with their Uzis, Nick driving for cover behind a burnt-out hulk of a tire, less abandoned car. Rounds smash into the wreck, tearing chunks of metal off around Nick's head. Not the greatest cover. We shoot from the profile as the kidnappers walk towards Nick, firing as they come. We change angles. We're 50 yards behind them and coming fast. Wham! Perseus flattens one of the men, running over him from behind, then wheels and jumps on the other, tearing at him. Nick jumps up and runs past the Raptor to the warehouse. Interior warehouse, ground floor. Nick enters through the front entrance. We follow him as he steps over smashed barrels, busted furniture, discarded weapons, dead bodies, and spreading puddles of olive oil. He pauses at the foot of the iron stairs, listens. Quiet. He calls up.
It's me. I'm coming up.
He changes channels on the headset, speaks more softly.
I'm in the building. No resistance apparent. Shut them down. Repeat, shut them down now.
He climbs the iron staircase, weapon at ready, squeezes by a kidnapper, body hanging upside down. He reaches the top steps into the office. Spartacus and Orestes face him. One side of Spartacus' head is a mess, blood dripping down from it. Spartacus stands with one foot resting on the overturned easy chair. They look wild-eyed and not shut down at all, but don't attack. Nick takes a step forward. Spartacus hisses. Nick freezes, looks around at the devastation in the room, blood on the walls, mattress torn to shred, one body hanging half out the window.
Where is she?
Spartacus growls.
You've done good work here. Outstanding. Where's the girl?
He sees the chair beneath the Raptor's foot.
Back. Move back.
Spartacus hesitates, then slowly steps away from the chair, not taking his eyes off Nick. Orestes is starting to nod as the radio-controlled neuropeptides do their work. Nick steps forward, lifts the chair away, a small figure under a blanket, not moving. Nick takes the edge of the blanket, lifts. Exterior warehouse street. A half dozen vehicles screech to a halt in front of the warehouse, mercenaries jumping out fully armed.
Surround the warehouse. We don't know if they're gonna come out there or.
Hold your fire.
She points. Nick steps out of the warehouse with Isabel in his arms, the little girl clutching at his neck and regarding the mercenaries with wide eyes as he carries her through them to Maya at the ambulance.
Sont-ils les montres que je vais vous?
Non, non. C'est seulement un rêve.
Nick hands Isabel off to the medic.
C'est gêne du porter et tes parents. C'est fini ton cauchemar.
Joyce is ecstatic.
Not a scratch on her. How are the boys?
Spartacus is shot up pretty bad. There's a lot of cleaning up to do in there.
Joyce signals to Zeiss.
Get on it.
The mercenaries hurry into the warehouse. Maya steps close to Nick.
You okay?
Nick grins. He is stoked from the action, the success of the rescue.
Never better.
Exterior castle night. Floodlights illuminate the courtyard of the castle as a helicopter lowers and settles onto the ground. Von Drax and his house staff are waiting and break into applause as Nick and the others step out of the chopper. Interior dining hall, champagne bottle. Pop! The cork goes flying and the champagne is dealt into glasses. Von Drax is at the head of the table, toasting Nick, Joyce, Maya, and Sherman.
Tonight, my friends, we have made history.
To our victorious reptiles.
They raise their glasses and drink.
The video was thrilling. I felt like I was in the room with them.
Be thankful that you weren't.
I think we are quite ready to show our capabilities to the world market.
Market?
There's another mission we've been planning, Nick. On a larger scale.
And this time, several interested parties will be on hand to watch, including a representative from your country's special forces, Mr. Harris.
We want you on board, Nick.
Do I have a choice?
I watched you out there. You were in your element.
Maya watches Nick, still flushed with victory, worried.
It's in your blood.
Interior raptor enclosure. Hector and Achilles put their heads together with Orestes and Perseus, exchanging chirping and clicking noise. War stories. Fade to black. Interior strategy room. Table model day. We look down on a table model of an extensive jungle fortress, checkpoints, guardhouses, barracks, drug processing buildings, and a lavish hacienda-style home.
Pepe Aguilar controls a large percentage of the heroin and cocaine still moving out from Latin America.
Room.
He has a private army, his own fleet of cargo planes, and here at Chutabamba, the state-of-the-art processing plant.
Joyce and Nick regard the layout. Nick nods to the blow-ups of aerial photos mounted on the wall.
So bombing off the map.
Aguilar also keeps several dozen prisoners in the compound, kidnapped members of the prominent families, politicians from all the major and minor parties, and most importantly, the president's favorite niece. He's way back in the jungle here to make a surprise attack with a number of the ground troops if you need.
Wouldn't be much of a surprise.
It's the perfect scenario for our very unique services. Penetrate their defenses and eliminate Pepe Aguilar.
Without hurting the hostages, this isn't a special ops mission, it's an invasion.
I suspect we'll need the whole team this time.
Exterior Mountain Valley enclosure. Nick, Maya, Sherman, and the mercenary team face a pair of spitters through the bars of the enclosure. Both have control implants on their heads.
These things were on the island.
Seem to thrive underground. Hard to track them all down.
Were they bioengineered?
Sherman flips down the plexiglass faceplate on his safety helmet, takes 3 steps towards the enclosure.
Yeah, not to the extent of the Deinonychus, but they're relatively controllable. Chlamydiosaurus butori. Chlamydiosaurus meaning frilled lizard. Sure. And sputori meaning
One of the spitters raises its spiny mantle and hawks a plug of sticky black mucus through the air where it sticks splat to Sherman's faceplate.
well, you get the idea. We've trained these spitters with the idea that there might be some tight spaces we need access to.
From now on, they're Casper and Pollux.
Sherman wipes his faceplate clean, looks at the spitters.
Which one is which?
Exterior compound mock-up, another day. Various of the drug lair structures have been recreated in the Valley training area. The control Humvee waits by a guard tower checkpoint. Guard tower, Joyce. Joyce, Zeiss, and another mercenary stand on top of the tower. Joyce watching the distance through binoculars. Interior Humvee. Nick, Sherman, and Maya watch the monitors in the Humvee.
Send them out.
Exterior Valley chute. Casper and Pollux emerge from the chute, followed by the 5 Deinonychus. All are fitted with body armor and shoulder-mounted cameras. Interior Humvee. Nick speaks into his headset.
Squad forward to objective. Maximum alert.
They watch the monitors as the animals head cautiously for the trees.
You'd think that the big ones would just eat the little ones.
We threw the chlamydiosaurus in with the big boys early on. They got glands full of toxin they expectorate.
Dionysus were sick for days.
I bet the spitter wasn't too thrilled about it either.
Exterior woods. Casper and Pollux lead the squad, slightly spread out through the woods. Casper suddenly stops, hissing, his spiny mantle popping out. He is standing a few inches from the tripwire, about 2 feet high, then runs from tree to tree. The Deinonychus carefully step over the wire as the spitters furiously dig, quickly burrowing under it. Interior Humvee. The humans watch on the Dino-Cam monitors. Exterior woods. The squad has come to a spot where the trees thin out and we can see a metal fence ahead, 8 feet high, with concertina wire on the top edge. They slow. The bigger Deinonychus steps to the fore. Interior Humvee.
All right, direct entry this time. Flying wedge.
We see some rearranging of their position on the monitors.
Go.
Monitors. On 2 of the monitors, we see the point of view as the bear rushes towards the fence. Exterior trees. Spartacus and Hector are sprinting full tilt towards the fence as the others trot behind them. Wham! They leap in unison and hit the fence with both hind legs extended, flattening a 10-foot section and making a breach. The others pour through and all spread out into the mock-up compound. Exterior compound tower. Joyce brings his binoculars down.
Here they come.
Interior Humvee monitor. On one of the splinters monitors, we see a somewhat camouflaged machine gun bunker up ahead. The spitter dives in. Exterior interior barracks. We follow as Orestes and Perseus bust into long barracks building, tossing furniture and narco dummies as they hustle from one end to the other. Exterior courtyard. Achilles bursts into the courtyard with a guard tower and Humvee sit immediately. Wham! Charging to butt his head against the base of the tower, knocking it off center. Humvee.
He's supposed to climb that, not knock it over.
It's Achilles.
Shut him down.
Tower. Wham! Another charging headbutt from the tower is at a 45-degree angle, wood beginning to crack and give.
Shut him off! Shut him off!
Achilles takes another running start, this time jumping on the side of the tower, his weight bringing it crashing to the ground. The men rolling out of the crow's necks, the mercenaries coming up firing. Bap, 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 bap. But Achilles silences him with a deadly downward swipe of his sickle claw. Humvee.
Off. Shut them off. All of them.
They should be unconscious.
Wham! Achilles hits the Humvee broadside with his head, and they are rolled upside down. Nick tries to clear his pistol as Sherman freaks.
Oh, please don't eat me. Please don't eat me. Please.
Quiet. Very quiet. Then a face appears at the passenger side window. Nick whipping his gun around.
Easy. He's down.
Achilles. The Deinonychus lies on his side, breathing shallowly, a glazed look on his eyes as Nick, Maya, and Joyce approach. Sherman sits on the side of the flipped Humvee behind them, shaking uncontrollably.
Berserker. We've had problems with him before.
I think he knew exactly what he was doing.
The response time on all of them keeps getting longer.
They're not machines. You can't just point your finger and expect them to kill whomever you...
Are you suggesting that they have a conscience?
It would be nice if someone around here did.
If you're not behind the program, Maya, you can always...
Quit? I'd be dead before I got across the moat.
It's out in the open now. Joyce and Maya glaring at each other. Zeiss returns, rifle in hand.
The others are all down too. Looks like they're just talking and just taking care of business.
He gives Achilles a hard kick in the ribs.
It's just this son of a...
He sees and hears everything you do.
Not for long.
Zeiss butts the barrel of the rifle to Achilles' temple.
Lay that! We need to know what went wrong here. I want a full workup on him and a report tomorrow morning. We don't have time for this.
Maya's looking down at the body of the slain mercenary.
What about him?
Accidents happen.
He steps closer to her, menacing.
Which is why we must all be very careful.
Exterior courtyard evening. The courtyard is lit up with torches. Baron von Drax is engaging in some target practice, shooting bolts from the ancient crossbow across the courtyard to shatter porcelain vases that have been set up in a row. Joyce looks on as Kroner reloads the crossbow after every shot. Nick steps out from the base of the tower just as smash! A vase is shattered only a few feet from him. Zeiss stands behind him, armed.
Nice shot.
I am an expert with several archaic weapons.
Very useful if you run into some archaic enemies.
And what about you, Mr. Harris? Are you a friend or an enemy?
An employee. He says you wanted to see me.
Would you mind placing another vase on the stand for me?
Nick picks up a vase from the ground.
These look expensive.
Priceless, but I'm tired of them.
Nick reaches to put the vase on the target stand. Smash! Von Drax shoots it out of his hand. Nick looks at his hand, cut and bleeding, then calmly turns to face the Baron.
As I am tired of waiting for you to return our property.
We don't really have a deal, do we?
Your payment?
My payment isn't much good unless I'm free to spend it.
Von Drax points the reloaded crossbow at Nick's head.
You wish to leave us?
Nick walks slowly across the courtyard, straight at Von Drax. Joyce watches his boss, tense, not sure the Baron won't pull the trigger. A little louder, Joyce.
We need him.
Nick stops only a few feet away from the deadly crossbow. He speaks softly.
You're keeping Maya here. She wants to go.
Miss Lundberg is not one of our more enthusiastic employees, no. But it wouldn't be prudent to...
You let her leave, no strings, no repercussions, and I tell you where I left the aerosol can.
If she talks about what we're doing here.
After the demonstration, you'll be begging for publicity. The whole point of a strike force like this one is to intimidate the people who don't have one.
And if we let her go, then you'll stay with the program?
Like you said, it's what I was meant to do.
Von Drax smiles, shifts the aim of the crossbow ever so slightly, and fires it past Nick's ear. Smash!
We have an agreement. Now, where are the embryos?
Interior dungeon, Ankylosaurus. Wham, 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 wham. The Ankylosaurus methodically smashes his tail into the dungeon wall, a pile of stone and mortar at its feet. Nick watches the great armored beast, thinking. Maya joins him, watches for a moment.
I know how he feels.
You're talking to each other.
Interior cavern, isolation cage. We see Achilles pacing in a steel reinforced isolation cage. He makes a high-pitched call and is answered by several of the other Deinonychus, their calls echoing from another part of the cavern.
They've been going at it for hours.
Observation booth, Nick and Maya. Nick and Maya look in front of the booth. Achilles calls again.
He's telling them about his escape attempt, like any other good prisoner. We used a tapping code.
Do you think all that was planned today?
Somebody has to test the envelope, see how far you can get.
What Sherman did today would have killed this animal a month ago. Their brains must be developing new pathways, rearranging circuitry like people do after a stroke.
Right! Achilles screams, staring defiantly at the two of them.
I told them where the embryos were.
Nick, no. Why would you?
As soon as this demonstration is over, no matter how it goes, you're free to walk.
And you trust them?
No, but I'll work for them.
How can you say that?
Mercenaries have existed all through history, like weapons. The only question is who's using them and what for.
Maya looks at him for a long moment, glances up. Maya's point of view, surveillance camera. A wide lens security camera stares down at them. Wider. Maya leans forward and kisses Nick. She breaks off the kiss, leans her lips close to his ear, whispers.
Who do you think had that little girl kidnapped?
Nick. We see into Nick's eyes as he realizes the nature of the devil he's just made a deal with. Interior security room night. The security guard writes down his observations as he watches Nick and Maya on one of the many surveillance monitors on his desk. Interior Rodrigo's bar kitchen day. 3 tough-looking guys in shades enter the near-empty bar. They head straight for the back room, the bartender calling out.
¿En qué puedo servirles, señores?
We follow them into the kitchen. The same old man is shucking oysters. He barely looks up at the 3 enter.
El Conglador.
The old man points with his knife. They go to the freezer, open it. Point of view freezer. Nestled among the chilling cervezas is the same aerosol can Nick dug up in Isla Nubar. The head tough guy lifts it up to his face, gives it a twist. The top pops to reveal a chamber in which lie several metal tubes.
Eso es.
Or is it? Bar. The thugs hurry out of the bar with their prize. The man in the foreground who was passed out with his face on the bar counter raises his head to watch them go. It is Overton. Bum, bum, bum. Interior jungle clearing day. Nick waits at the edge of the clearing in the jungle, his ATV parked in a narrow lodging road behind him. He looks at his watch, then at the sky. We hear the drone of airplanes. Exterior jungle village, a small village with the river on one side and the jungle wall on the other. A half dozen military vehicles of various sorts are parked in the center of the village, mercenaries waiting around for orders. Interior headquarters building. Inside the biggest structure, a command headquarters has been set up. A bank of Dinocan monitors takes up one wall, manned by a pair of grenade technicians. Representatives, some in military uniform, some not, from Asia, Europe, Africa, Latin America, and Russia, mill around waiting for the show to start. Joyce stands nervously looking at his watch as Baron von Drax chats in German with a uniformed colonel nearby, presenting him with a halberd from his collection. The colonel poses for a snapshot with the weapon. Sherman checks his biometers as Maya sits nearby, glumly recording the scene.
We've got them.
Hubbub in many languages as the spectators cross to watch the monitors. Joyce acts as master of ceremonies.
Though the objective is not a great distance from here, we felt that any demonstration of our special capabilities should include an aerial insertion.
Monitors. On most of the monitors, we see images too dark or fuzzy to interpret. Suddenly, on one, we see the cargo door of a transport aircraft slide open and the camera is launched into the air as its bearer jumps out. Another and another of the monitors show the same image, open sky, then bits of the jungle below.
What is big deal? Dropping weapons from plane?
A collective gasp as on one monitor, Orestes, suspended from a parachute, swings into frame.
That, gentlemen, is the big deal.
Exterior clearing sky. The sky is full of parachutes floating earthward with dinosaurs hanging from them. We tilt to Nick, who shakes his head in amazement, then speaks into the headset.
Squad, form and proceed to target. You're on your own, fellas.
He gets into the ATV, shoots a last look at the sky, then monitors away down the lodging road. Sky, Spartacus. We drift down, shooting past Spartacus towards the clearing from under the canopy of the chute. His powerful legs easily take up the shock of the landing. Pop! The buckles on the chute harness separate with a small explosion, and the harness falls away. Spartacus stepping away from it. We see the other squad members making similar landings in the BG or background. Interior headquarters building. The spectators are amazed as they watch. Monitor. Captured on another creature's camera, we see Casper hung up in a tree at the edge of the clearing, chute snagged on the branches.
I must inform you that this is the first jump our operatives have undertaken.
Pop! The harness releases and Casper falls a few feet before snatching a branch with its tail, then swinging to grab the trunk of the tree before shinning down quick as a squirrel.
But as you see, they are somewhat more resilient than conventional forces.
Exterior clearing. The squad quickly melt into the jungle as the far side of the clearing. Exterior jungle village. Nick pulls up in the ATV, hurries into the headquarters building. Interior headquarters building. Nick crosses to Joyce, glancing at the dino cam, images of jungle being traversed.
I thought we'd lose at least one.
How do the bio readouts look?
Heart rates went through the roof when we dumped him out of the plane, but they're back in predator mode already.
Nick is distracted as he sees half dozen narco-looking characters watching one of the monitors.
Who are they?
Those are the gentlemen who hired us.
They look just like the bunch we're trying to take out.
A rival group. They've made a deal with the government and their end of it starts with eliminating Pepe Aguilera.
We're working for drug runners.
An unproven product. The need for a great deal of discretion, and they were the highest bidders.
Nick scowls as Joyce waves somebody over.
All the major players have sent somebody to observe. You know Andy Slade.
Slade, a hard-looking American, nods to Nick.
Paris. I think it was a checkpoint on the Turkish border.
Still in?
Consulting. These things know what they're doing?
Only too well.
Tracking screen. Blinking red dots move across the screen towards a rectangular swatch of green.
Approaching out of perimeter.
The tracking technician points to an eighth blinking dot way behind the others.
This one's still lagging.
Zeiss. Zeiss enters, crosses rapidly to the Baron, whispers something. The Baron face reddens. He signals Joyce to come over. We meet Joyce as he joins the Baron.
Something wrong?
The aerosol can has arrived in Draxburg.
Excellent.
Dr. Wetzel has analyzed DNA. He saw it right away.
Saw what?
Hoptoads. He's given us genes from hoptoads.
Joyce looks over at Nick, furious.
Stay with Harris and the woman. The slightest sign of sabotage or escape, and you kill them.
My pleasure.
Exterior jungle day. The raptors move rapidly through the thick jungle. Spartacus, in the lead, stops to sniff the air. The others freeze behind him, alert. Spartacus makes a low grunt, and Casper and Pollux move forward. The others follow the two spitters, more slowly now. Pollux. The spitter slinks with his belly close to the ground, head low, barely disturbing the underbrush. Suddenly, he pops his head up and spits As the whip pan is a spat, the black mucus glob hits the lens of a surveillance camera mounted on a tree. Interior narco compound, surveillance room. 2 outer perimeter screens are suddenly black on the surveillance console. Our narco guard stands looking over the shoulder of the baffled desk man.
What happened?
We just lost the image.
Did you see anything?
I think I saw a lizard.
A lizard.
The desk man spreads his arm to indicate size.
Really big lizard.
Exterior jungle. The perimeter guard is out walking sentry at the edge of the jungle, pacing, listening. He stops by a tree, pulls out a cigarette, lights it. Suddenly, a spitter swings down inches from his face, hanging upside down from a branch by its tail, and snap, grabs the startled man's face in its jaws. Several of the Deinonychus pass the grisly scene, hopping like kangaroos over a 2-foot-high tripwire strung between the trees. Another area jungle. A loose shot as a squad of narco guards pass, automatic weapons ready, searching the trees all around them. Their squad leader is talking softly in a cell phone.
There's no sign of anybody. We'll check the cameras. The humidity is tough on them.
We let the squad exit frame, hold a beat, then Spartacus and Perseus seem to materialize from the jungle before our eyes, their chameleon-like camouflage and ability to freeze still so effective that we were staring at them the whole time. They move off in the opposite direction. Interior machine gun bunker. 2 machine gunners peer out of the jungle through the cameo. Netting, crouching behind their machine guns in a dirt-floored bunker, listening hard.
I swear I can hear something or sense something.
Whoosh! Casper bursts up from the floor behind them, dirt flying as they whirl. He hisses, his spiny mantle popping out. Interior barracks. We're in the main barracks for the narco soldiers, which looks like not unlike a jock dorm at a large university. Posters of babes on the wall, guys lounging around in their underwear, smoking, reading magazines, watching a gamera, giant Japanese turtle that emits flames from its butt when it flies to the rescue. Movie on a big screen TV. Wham! Orestes bursts in the front entrance. Wham! Achilles bursts in the rear entrance. Bedlam as the Deinonychus charge from opposite ends, slashing, tearing, chomping at the screaming, terror-stricken narcos. Exterior compound tower. Bap, 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 bap. The machine gun opens up on the main tower as Spartacus and Orestes streak into the compound. Hector scrambles up the side of the tower and chomp, deals with the sentry. Drug lab. A half a dozen narcos come running out of the long rectangular drug lab, blasting away with their weapons as Spartacus charged straight at them, rounds smacking into his body armor. Pounce! Orestes leaps on top of the men from the roof behind them, flattening a pair and then tearing into the others. Interior jacuzzi room. Pepe Aguilar, wearing nothing but a lot of gold chains, kicks back in his enormous jacuzzi. Water jets churn away with a pina colada in hand and salsa music on the radio. He looks up, surprised to be interrupted as bodyguards hustle in.
Nos atacamos!
My who?
Adversarios!
Pepe starts to laugh.
You've been sampling the product again. We make drugs here. We don't take them.
The bodyguard lays an Uzi at the edge of the jacuzzi and hurries away.
Dejo esto.
We hold on Pepe, shaking his head.
Idiot bodyguards.
He takes a drink, closes his eyes, and sinks back into the churning water. Exterior compound, prisoner corral. All around, we hear sporadic gunfire and human screams as Spartacus kills the guard in front of the fenced-in area, then clang, tears the gate off its hinges. A couple dozen prisoners kidnapped by the narcos cower against the back fence as Spartacus steps in, roars, then lowers his head to sniff at the petrified occupants.
It's the end! It's the end of the world!
Spartacus straightens, roars again, and exits. A few of the prisoners fall to their knees to give thanks for their salvation. Courtyard. Gunfire and screams continue as we follow a trio of narcos who jump into an SUV and patch out, swerving to avoid Orestes, who is busy demolishing a guardhouse. The SUV hurtles towards the exit gate, but the Ankylosaurus, last to arrive, is just coming in, its huge armored body filling the opening. The driver slams on the brakes, throwing the SUV into a sideways skid. Dust billows up until smash! It hits the Ankylosaurus and flips over its back, landing behind it on its side. Wham! 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 The beast instinctively begins to smash the metal attacker flat with a club on its powerful tail. Interior drug lab. Hector charges through the long drug lab, chasing terrified workers before him, apparatus smashing all around as he rampages through and over the tables, leaving white powder flying, sizzling chemical spills, and spreading fire in his wake. Interior headquarters building. The narcos who have hired Grendel are dismayed as they see the lab trashed on Hector's monitor.
This wasn't our idea. Our deal. What is it doing?
What's his problem?
They were hoping to be able to recycle most of the drugs and equipment in there.
Nick catches Maya shooting him an "I told you so" look. Tracking screen. The blinking dots have corrugated in one small area.
They're inside Pepe's mansion now.
Interior Pepe's mansion portrait. A portrait of Pepe, dressed slick and leaning on a red Porsche, hangs on the wall. Splat. A plug of spitter mucus hits the portrait, bubbles, and something in the burning the canvas. We pan to the hallway, decorated in a very expensive, very bad taste, where the bodyguard sprints past, firing the occasional shot behind as Casper chases after him. He ducks around the corner. We hear a roar and a scream, and then Orestes trots around the corner with the bodyguard still struggling in his jaws. Lobby staircase. The tropical plants adorn the ostentatious lobby that leads to a curving marble staircase. A pair of narcos come running down the staircase, one tripping and sprawling down end over end, and the other gaining the ground floor and running straight at us. But Perseus appears above him, leaping over the banister and landing with both feet thump right on top of the man. Interior jacuzzi room. Pepe, hearing the screams and gunfire outside, now has the Uzi in hand and worried look on his face. Bam, bam, bam. Something is battering the vault door that protects him. Hallway. A fire has been started further down the hallway, smoke starting to billow as the Ankylosaurus pounds the vault door again and again with his tail. The wall around the door is starting to crumble. The smoke envelops the beast just as crash! The whole section of the wall and the door fell inward. Interior jacuzzi room. Pepe stands in the middle of the still churning jacuzzi, doing his Scarface routine, Uzi pointed and ready, trying to see through the smoke.
Come on, you want to play?
Suddenly, the two spitters leap through the smoke, mantles puffed out, shrieking, and land splash, splash, smack in the jacuzzi with Pepe. We hear screaming, splashing, snarling as the blood sprays on the puffy white towels hanging on the wall. Exterior jungle village. Joyce leads the observers out of their waiting vehicles.
We'll head over while they're mopping up and you can get a little closer look. I'm not too sure if it's safe.
EC's safe?
If we can turn them on, I assure you, we can turn them off.
They pass and Nick and Maya exit. Zeiss is waiting by a vehicle, pointing his pistol at Nick's head.
You two are coming with me.
Our deal was
Just get in.
Exterior, interior drug compound, various shots. Quiet. The place looks bombed out. Toppled towers, burning buildings, the trashed, burning interior of the lab, bodies and furniture strewn around in the barracks. On the huge TV, lying on its side now, Gamera is saving small Japanese children. Yay. The ankylosaurus is peacefully grazing on the tropical foliage in the lobby of Pepe's mansion. Blood smears on the white marble floor and staircase. Blood fills the still churning jacuzzi. The kidnapped prisoners cautiously step out from their enclosure for a look. Courtyard. The squad, all present except for the ankylosaurus, regroup in the courtyard. Achilles is badly wounded, blood covering his throat and staining his body armor. Spartacus approaches him slowly and crack lashes out with a front claw to smash the soldier-mounted camera. He reaches up and grasps the control implant with his dexterous claws and rips it from Achilles' ear. Exterior Lodging Road. A convoy of vehicles, the control wagon in the lead, moves down the narrow dirt road through the jungle. Interior control wagon. Joyce and Sherman watch, incredulous, as the other raptors follow suit, smashing each other's cameras, one dashboard monitor after another going black.
Doing.
Deactivate. I want them out of the commission when we get out of there.
Exterior drug compound. The raptors, with their cameras and implants all destroyed, head out through the front gate, stepping over the flipped, battered SUV. Interior control wagon. Sherman watches the tracking screen in the vehicle with mounted alarm.
They're still moving.
Why?
I don't know.
Where are they going?
Sherman watches the blinking red dots for a moment. He gives Joyce a scared look.
Toward us.
Interior vehicle, Nick and Maya. Zeiss has the pistol casually pointed towards Nick as he drives, Maya in the back seat.
Did you think you could fool us with the frogs?
I figured once I had the cans, somebody was going to come after me. Setting up a decoy was just a way to buy time.
What are you talking about?
Your boyfriend gave us the wrong can of jeans.
Maya looks to Nick, thrilled to hear this.
You.
Zeiss looks up ahead.
Why are we stopping?
Convoy. Joyce is out front, looking ahead down the narrow lodging road, worried. Kroner, driving, sticks his head out of the control wagon.
It's too narrow to turn around.
Well, we can't back all the way up to the village.
They're a quarter mile away and coming fast.
Drivers and observers are popping out of their vehicles now to see what the holdup is. The Baron calls, impatient.
Why do we wait?
There's a problem on the road ahead.
What could be the Oh my Gott in Himmel.
We whip pan to see the squad of raptors tearing down the road towards the convoy. Everyone jumps back into their vehicles, and there is a desperate automotive scramble as they all try and turn around and speed away at once, resulting in something like a demolition derby, vehicles smashing into each other and into trees, getting stuck at the muck alongside the road, then Spartacus and his squad hit the convoy like a tidal wave, butting, slashing, kicking, knocking the small vehicles over and stomping on the larger ones. One mercenary is plucked clean off his motorcycle by Hector, while another dodges away only to have Pollux leap into the back of it and wrap his arms around the motorcyclist. The guy glances back to see who is hitchhiking, screams as the spitter opens its jaws. The Narco's car, one tire slashed and bumping, the Mercedes carrying the Baron manages to turn and speed away. In Nick's car, smash! A Deinonychus foot busts through the windshield, sickle claw pinning Zeiss to his seat. Nick and Maya bail out of their doors. Orestes and Perseus pursue a half dozen observers into the jungle. Whoomp! Slade, thoroughly chewed upon, falls from above and lands hard on top of the SUV. Interior Mercedes. Baron von Drax looks over his driver's shoulder. The Narco car head is fishtailing, unable to make speed and hold the road with the front tire blown.
Ow! Schnell!
It's in our way.
Then push it out of the way.
The driver mashes the gas pedal. Lodging road. The vehicles blast towards us, the Mercedes catching the tail of the Narco car and wham! Knocking it sideways to head on against a roadside tree. One Narco flies over us through the windshield and the Mercedes blows by. Achilles peels off the attack, the remaining narcos as they stagger out of the wreck, and Spartacus continues after the Baron's ride. Interior Mercedes, the Baron is terrified.
We don't stop at the village. We go straight to the helicopter.
Thump! Something heavy rocks the car from above.
What is this?
Crunch! Claws punch through the roof above the driver's head. Rip! The roof is pulled open like the lid of a sardine can. The driver loses control. The Mercedes slewing sideways and smash, coming to rest on its side in the trees. Baron von Drax climbs out of the totaled Mercedes over the dead body of the driver. He stands, turns. Spartacus towers over him, roaring.
Nein! Du bist mein Kind!
But Spartacus is not moved by this professionalism of kinship and impales Von Drax with the thrust of his sickle claw. Sherman, one lens knocked out of his glasses and bleeding from the scalp, clumsily but hastily climbs a tree. Convoy, smashed and upended vehicles litter the lodging road. Quiet now. Maya crawls out from under the trashed Humvee right into the legs of Joyce. Claw marks and blood on his chest, pistol on his hand, still a little stunned.
They didn't stop. No insulin, no adrenaline.
Willpower.
Joyce turns his attention to her, points his pistol.
They'll be back,
Probably.
No reason to think they won't kill you too.
No reason.
He brings the pistol very close, aiming right between her eyes.
I'll save them the trouble.
Whomp! Nick flies out of nowhere, tackling Joyce, and blam! The pistol going off as they hit the ground. They roll, trading punches, struggling to strangle each other. The pistol left on the ground. Joyce kicks Nick off him, rolls to his knees, looks about. The halberd Von Drax gave to the colonel lies on the ground just beside him. Joyce comes up with the halberd and swish, swish, swings it expertly, taunting at Nick, backing him towards the trees.
I'll save them the trouble. That's not my line. I was wrong about you, Nick. I thought you were smart. I thought they backed you, all the idealism out of your skull in that pow camp.
Swish! He takes a mighty swing. Nick just able to duck under it. Maya pounces on the discarded pistol, aims, pulls the trigger, out of ammo. Joyce swings, slicing Nick across the shoulder. Nick backing up wearily, bleeding.
How did you do it, Nick? How did you sabotage this?
They did it on their own. They watched and waited.
Joyce makes a rush and Nick falls backward over a root. He is helpless at Joyce's feet. Joyce with the halberd raised over his head like a woodsman about to chop.
They're animals, Nick. Throw them a bone. They'll do what they want.
He hears a metal sound as something behind him steps on the car debris, whirling and thunk, buries the halberd blade into the armored chest of Achilles, tottering above him. Achilles roars, grabs the halberd shaft, and yanks it out of his armor. He drops it and lunges for Joyce. Nick scrambles away on his hands and knees as we hear Joyce screaming as he's torn to bits. Achilles drops Joyce's body to the ground, turns to step towards Nick.
Achilles, no! Stop.
Blood is pumping out of the wound in the raptor's neck, his eyes swimming in and out of focus, his blood sugar all used up. He turns to look at Maya, tilting his head, trying to understand. He takes another step, then falls like tall timber.
Nick!
Maya starts towards him, but is cut off by Casper, the spitter darting in front of her, hissing and displaying.
Don't move.
Spartacus and the others come out of the trees, ringing around them. Spartacus sniffs Maya's body and face. Maya stands absolutely still, looking him in the eye. He steps away, rolls Achilles' body over with his foot, sniffs it. Then, Nick. then straightens. He trumpets in triumph and trots off into the trees, the rest of the squad following. Maya runs to Nick, who is examining his bleeding shoulder.
Are you all right?
First time I've been wounded with a 15th century weapon. How far you think they'll get without insulin?
Maya looks into the jungle where the raptors disappeared.
Hard to say.
He puts his arm over her shoulder and they walk away from us, back down the lodging road towards the village.
So where are the embryos? The real ones?
My deal was with John Hammond. What he does with them, well, let's hope it turns out better than the last time.
Sherman, tree. Dusk is starting to fall. Birds call. Insects hum. Sherman decides it might be all clear.
Anybody left down there? Hello?
No answer. There is a flapping sound. The shadow passing over Sherman. He looks up just as a huge pterosaur lands on the tree opposite him.
You're not supposed to be here.
Another pterosaur flaps down and settles into an even closer branch. Then another. All three stare at Sherman. He starts to cautiously climb down.
Great. I'll just be going now.
Squawk! The first pterosaur lets out a blown, chilling noise. Tiny rows of sharp teeth revealed in it. It opens its beak. Sherman freezes.
Listen, there's a lot of bodies just lying around out there, dead meat. Nom, nom, nom.
The first pterosaur spreads its wings, opens its razor tooth beak, and steps along the branch towards Sherman.
Nice birdie.
Aerial shot, jungle canopy. High above the jungle canopy, we hear a human scream and the screech of pterosaurs. Credits roll.
All right, folks. Well, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you at the next one.